Anybody here yet? Waiting to see. Where is everybody? Nobody's here yet. That's a surprise for the Belmont. Here we go. Okay, got a few of you. Good evening. I see 9 of you are here. Hi, Paula. How are you? And Silver Charm, how are you, sir? I've forgotten what's your name. Was it Grant? Silver, can you tell me what your name is? Just so I. Hi, Daniel. John. Hi, John. Good to see you. Hi, Sean. Ruben, I haven't seen you before. How are you? Michael from Stuttgart. How are you? Good to see you. We missed you. Laura, of course, our stalwart. Good to see you. Debbie. Okay, Deb. Well, I'm glad you told me. Yeah, nicknames are great or supercats are great, but I just like to use proper names. Christopher, good to have you and thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. Well, just as a little preamble, Scott was going to be here tonight to talk about the pace for the Belmont. He may not be here at all. I have his numbers and we will go over all of them, but he has promised me he likely can be here a little later on. So I will certainly field questions in the meantime. We're going to talk about the. Hey Ernie, how you doing? We're going to. Hey, how about that fatal departure or faithful departed? Um, so yeah, you know what, that blame stakes yesterday after Vibe scratched. I never should have bet that race for the pick five. I almost posted to say, I wouldn't even bother with it. That race was so topsy turvy and wide open. It could have been anybody. No problem, Tyler. Good to have you. The store's open, by the way, Tyler, and you can see the hat. I've got my Right at the Wire hat on, and I've got new designs. I'm going to be adding some stuff there. They're having a little glitch right now, but I'm going to get that done. I saw a post saying Napoleon Solo is going to enter. I don't think he's entering the Belmont. We'll see. It's been one of those years with these last minute entries, these last minute scratches. Um, Thanks, Ernie. I don't think that's a good race for him. I really don't. Yeah, Original Sin. I thought that the Blame Sean was a complete. I was like, I don't even know why. I almost didn't play the pick five because of it. I was like, it was such a crapshoot race. You know, Tyler, I have so much to ask you and discuss tonight for the Belmont. Can't wait. Okay, well, go for it. I have. We're going to talk about the Belmont tonight. It is at Saratoga, of course, and this will be the last year they do it there. It's at 1.25 miles, and much like Churchill Downs, it is. You've got a fair run up to the first turn. And there are only 10 in this race. So, I mean, the post positions are certainly are always important, but they may not be as crucial as they are for the Derby. So we'll just have to see. Obviously, there's a lot. I've got all my slides prepared. All I'm waiting for is the morning line and the post positions. And once I have those, and then I've been looking at the race, doing the pace numbers and whatnot, but we'll do a thorough investigation before we post them. Okay, Tyler asks, now let's see. Let's get that up here. My first point is, it seems like everyone is fading Golden Tempo because of the pace meltdown at Churchill Downs. Hey, Daniel, how you doing? Daniel Zidlowski, I believe it is. Yes, we are. Are we going to talk about the suspect blames? I'm going to get to this in a second. Are we going to? We just talked about it a little bit. Daniel, I really don't want to talk about it anymore. That was a lousy race. And anyway. All right. Tyler's question. On to the Belmont. My first point is, it seems like everyone is fading Golden Tempo because of the pace meltdown at Churchill Downs. Why is nobody applying that same logic to Renegade? He also benefited from that. He did, Tyler, to a certain extent. He had a little rougher trip than Golden Tempo did. I really think what it is more than anything else is now you got to remember a couple of things. First of all, the Derby is an extremely unique race. You got 20 horses. Yes, the distance is the same for the Belmont this year, but it's half the field size. So the pace should be, yes, it won't be as quick. I don't think it will be as the Belmont. But why? Well, first of all, I would say I think Renegade was that far back mainly because of his post position. I think if Arad had his druthers, he probably would have had him a little more mid-pack or closer. Because if you go back and watch Renegade's races, he's not a stone closer like Golden Tempo. Now, he's listed as an S-type, I believe. But he's not, he doesn't have to drop all the way to the back like Golden Tempo does. He doesn't have to do that. I think there was the reason was because of the post position. I expect Golden Tempo to be much more forwardly placed, not right up on the leaders, I don't think, but he'll be like mid-pack or a little bit behind that. I think that's one of the reasons that they're not smearing Renegade with the same brush as they are Golden Tempo. The other reason is he's a better horse. He really is. When you consider the trip he had in the Derby, and he still had plenty of horse and was able to get up and almost win the thing, he's pretty good. Came off the bench, in the Tampa Bay Derby or the Sam F. Davis, dusted that field, dusted him in the Arkansas Derby. He's really good. Paladin's the only horses, and Golden Tempo, the only two who've ever beaten him. He's really good. I think that's what it is, Tyler, more than anything else. And I hope that answers your question. I think I don't think he's going to be impacted from it as much as Golden Tempo will be. I firmly believe that. Let me take a look. Let me catch up a little bit here, guys. Okay. All right. And he is going to be what, 9-5? Yeah, he is, deservedly so. He's the best horse in the race. Let's see. We can talk about. All right. Irad found a convenient way to get hit show blocked in a small field. Yeah, it was a pretty lousy. He was bottled up. He had nowhere to go. I don't think he was going to win it anyway, to be quite honest. But he did make a really nice effort late. That race was just an aberration. I didn't like any. I didn't like any horse in it. Vibe was the only one who was you could kind of make a case for, to be quite honest. But that's horse racing. Let's see. Ernie likes Renegade and Emerging Market. Okay. I know you like Renegade. That's for sure. This will be a more, let's see. Sean says this will be a more normal race with less horses and less opportunity for all the bumping and problems. That's right. I agree, Sean. There's so many calamities that are created by the 20-horse field that you don't experience in other fields. Even when you have 12 horses, you don't have the same problems that you do in the Derby. They had 14 in the Preakness, but the way the race was run, I mean, the Preakness was pretty much a merry-go-round race. Really nobody changed position terribly much. And as we saw, I think it was speed favoring, and, the late runners really didn't have a chance in that race. and it was a mediocre field. But it's just the 20-horse field just creates so many more problems that you're not going to have in other races. Okay, Michael from Stuttgart. Will the Belmont most likely be won by the best stalker mid-pack horse that gets the best position or trip due to the pace dynamics and track bias, either Commandment, Chief Wallaby, or Emerging Market? I would tell you that now. I just want to stress I haven't given this my final finishing touches when I've looked at this race. What I would say is I wouldn't be as concerned about the lack of pace that perhaps some other people would be. If you like anybody. Now Golden Tempo and Ocelli are kind of unique. They need a little bit of pace to run to. And I think Ocelli is regressing. I think he ran his peak in the Derby. You saw a little less in the Preakness. It's going to be a little less in the Belmont. That's my feeling, especially if they try to get him more forwardly placed. I don't think he will. I think he needs to be pretty far back. Golden Tempo only does it one way until proven otherwise. That's what he's going to do. He's going to go to the back of the pack. And without pace to run to, it's going to be tough. He's going to have it tough. I think he can get into the money. I think he can make a strong run at it. But in order for him to win, he's got to be better than every other horse in the race. I don't think he was the best horse on Derby Day. And I don't think he's the best horse in this race. I think he's a good horse who's getting – and you can't necessarily even say he's getting better. I mean, he is progressing, but he hasn't changed his running style. And as long as that happens – now, case in point, Sovereignty last year came from the back in the Derby. In the Belmont, where was he? More forwardly placed. Where was he in the Travers? More forwardly placed. That's a horse who's getting it. That's a horse who's improving. Golden Tempo has run the same way since his debut, no matter what the distance. He is definitely going to be compromised by the lack of pace in this race. I don't see any way around it. Renegade, I don't think as much. I think Renegade can handle it. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Now, as far as stalkers and mid-pack horses, I think any one of those three will have an opportunity to win the race. The pace being more relaxed would help Commandment the most, in my opinion. I got some questions about Commandment. I'm still not really certain he's a 1.25 mile horse. I'm really not sure. I talked about it, in the elements of handicapping. I talked about it in the individual profile and Commandment. He ran in the Mucho Macho Man. Why? And Brad Cox is on record saying, I'm not sure how far he wants to go. In the Derby, yes, he had some problems. They had to use him early. That is entirely true. But when Ocelli bumped him, not really a response. Chief Wallaby got bumped. He kept going. So I'm a little skeptical about Commandment in this race rebounding, even with a more favorable trip. Chief Wallaby, I still really like as a horse, but what you can't get past is, first of all, Junior Alvarado gave him what I thought was a poor ride in the Derby. And he gave him kind of the same ride in the Florida Derby. Kept him a little too far back, moved a little too late. And when you watch the Derby, I mean, he got bumped by, Further Ado. And all of a sudden, the wheels started turning, and he started running. And it was too late, and he was too far back. That horse needed to be up closer to the pace. And I think if he was, he had a very good opportunity to win. I don't know if he could have won the Derby, but I think he had a good opportunity. I think I'm not overly sold on Chief Wallaby getting 1.25 miles, but I liked what I saw in the Derby. I think he showed that the distance wouldn't be an issue. But I still not 100% on him. Emerging market is really an X factor. Now he threw a shoe. We know that he was closer to the pace than anybody of note, anybody else of note, except maybe what So Happy. Uh, Incidentally, this is a New World Decenio, Decenio. I went New World tonight. I love their Dorado. If you haven't had it, I recommend it. But this is pretty good so far. So anyway, not to digress. I like emerging market, but I think he got singed being a little too close to the pace. But what kind of worries me, the pace. I know the opening quarter was quick, but that 46 and change, 110, 111, and then the whole race broke down. There have been so many years with the exact same pace fractions it hasn't. So then I wonder about how many of these really want a mile and a quarter. So if the pace is more moderate, of course, it's going to keep more of these horses in it. Witness the Florida Derby. The pace was slow. Commandment, Chief Wallaby, the Puma. And again, I'm not so sure the Puma wants a mile and a quarter either. But they were able to stay in the race because of the pace. So the long-winded answer, Michael, is do any one of those three possible? Yes. If I had to choose between the three, if I had to rank them, I'd go like Chief Wallaby, Emerging Market, Commandment. Just off the top of my head. I think you're going to see emerging markets stay. Well, the pace will be more reasonable. So if he runs the way he did in the Derby as well as in the Louisiana Derby, I think he'll be fine. Then it's going to be a question if he's good enough. So I think any one of those have an opportunity. But I don't know. I think it's a race this is a race the best horse is going to win. And I don't think it's going to be pace dependent. I don't think the pace is going to have as much of an impact as you might think. Will it compromise Golden Tempo and Ocelli? Yeah, I think it will. But, if Golden Tempo can take a step forward, okay. So anyway, there's that. Hi, Jeremy. I haven't seen you before. Good to see you. Welcome aboard. Heard Ocelli is skipping the Belmont and targeting the Ohio Derby. I think that is a race that he's more capable of winning than the Belmont. I see him sliding back. He slid back from the Derby in the Preakness. And I think if he does, I mean, you may be right. I haven't heard anything, but if he runs in the Belmont, I'm not using him. I think he's headed down. Like horses peak and then they regress. He was, I think that was just caught him at the right time in the Derby. Chief Wallaby will be super tough in the Belmont being in its. Yeah, he's going to be tough. Pick the pros. You told me your name last week. Forgive me, I can't remember. If you could please tell me what your name is so I can call you it, I'd appreciate it. I don't think the pace is going to matter. I think Chief Wallaby is going to be tough no matter what. I am a little worried about his maturity because even with the blinkers, I'm not sure he knows exactly what he's supposed to be doing yet. Witness the Derby, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to win this thing kind of thing. When he got bumped, it kind of woke him up. Junior Alvarado keeps him too far back. I thought he, as far as getting him into position, Junior Alvarado gave him an excellent ride from that standpoint. The problem was tactically he was too far back to begin with. He needed to be more engaged in that race. And he was not. That is what they need to do. I'm sure that he and Bill Mott have talked about it, and I'm sure that will be the instructions, especially with the lack of pace, that, yeah, he needs to get more involved, and he's going to be tough. I agree. Let's see. Didymus. You're another one. You told me your name last week. I can't remember it. I apologize. I get too many people. I should write them down. Can someone wire this field? Of course. Um, yeah, they can. Um, it, um, it's possible, but it is now. I will. Is Power Shift the horse who's going to do it? Come on, he just graduated as maiden. I don't think so. I don't see him as being that kind of talent that emerging market is. I really don't. The Tampa Bay Derby, yeah, okay, that was his second start, but I mean, he was just nowhere in that race. And okay, he won his maiden on Derby Day, and everybody gets excited when they see a horse on Derby Day, and okay, fine. I don't see it, and the pace numbers bear that out, by the way, which we will get to. That if he runs the race he did in that maiden, he's not going to be close. Renegade is definitely the class of field. I agree with you, Ernie. He is. I really liked. Let's see. I really liked how Commandment ran in the Derby, very wide and as good as fourth until the bumping. I can't go there. I can't. I'm Debbie, isn't it? I'm sorry. I apologize. I asked for your name and I can't remember. It was terrible. Yes. Okay. I did not like the way Commandment ran Debbie. Well, I shouldn't say that. I didn't like the trip he got. Out of the break, he had some bumping. So they had to use him a little bit to get into position. Then he got bumped again, and he didn't respond to it. This is a horse who sort of made his bones on being versatile, fighting through things. That was a big plus going to the Derby. We thought, hey, Commandment can fight his way through traffic. I think it was more the distance myself, because he just didn't have much left. And when the horse has to get used that much and still can't get the job done, I'll give a great example. I've talked about it before. When Giacomo won it in 2005, the best horse on the day, without a doubt, was that Fleet Alex. Now, and he was in the 12 hole, and they had to use him again and again and again to get position. And guess what? He still almost won the race with a lightning fast pace. There was a rabbit in that race, Spanish Chestnut, 45-109 with the fractions, I believe. And they used him, and he still almost won the race. Now, that's a hell of a horse. I wanted to see something like that from Commandment, and I didn't see it. So while I do commend him on, being able to work his way through traffic, I want to see a little bit more at the end of it if he really wanted the distance. And that's all I'd say about it. That's my personal opinion on him, Debbie. I think he's a nice horse. I think he's got a chance in this race, but I do wonder about him at the distance. Okay. Tyler. Next for me, Alex, is a horse I am absolutely loving, especially at his price. What are your thoughts on Power Shift? Do you think he is legit or just a rabbit for Renegade? Well, he's not a rabbit. Let's say that right off the bat. He is not a rabbit. And here's why you think about it. Why would Mike Rapoli put a rabbit in for Renegade when that's exactly what Golden Tempo needs? Golden Tempo needs a rabbit. If he puts a rabbit in and Power Shift guns it from the get-go and sets suicidal fractions, who's that going to benefit the most? Golden Tempo. It's not going to benefit Renegade necessarily because, again, he's not a deep closer. He is not the same type of runner. You go back and watch the Arkansas Derby or watch the Sam F. Davis, and you tell me if he's a dead closer. He isn't. He runs the back of the mid-pack. He's more of a P than he is an S, in my opinion. And I don't think he needs a rabbit. He doesn't need a rabbit to win this race. And I don't think I don't see Power Shift wiring this field. I really don't see it. I don't think he's good enough. Maybe he will be later on in his career, but not right now. I mean, he just won a maiden race that wasn't the greatest of fields. And how many times have I talk about this all the time? People get enamored with horses who win these maiden races. Well, look at who he's beating. You know, that's the ticket. He got a 116 class rating for winning that maiden special weight. Now, I've said that before. Talked about class rating, race rating ad nauseum. You guys know about it, Brisnet. I've shown you what it is, and what it basically. I believe the field was a 115, a little bit above average maiden field, but stakes level races are 118, 119, 117, 18, 19. And usually when you have a maiden who is definitely better and will be better when he steps up, they run like a 119 or a 120, some big class rating, because they just proclaiming that we're better than everybody in this field. He didn't do that. He won it impressively enough. So just keep that in mind. And this race shape really doesn't set up well from they're kind of throwing him to the wolves, in my opinion. And I don't think he's a rabbit. I really don't. I hope that answers your question, Tyler. Let's see. I am such a greenhorn with this technical stuff. I swear to God. I'm so sorry it takes me so long. I think Commandment will be right up there early. Not the lead, but close. Possible. I have a CSJ. Oh, you've been here before, and is it John? Is your name? I apologize. It was John or maybe Grant. One of the two. I'm sorry. I heard Power Shift isn't going to the Belmont. I have not heard anything about these defections that you guys are talking about. I'm not to say that they're not true, but I just haven't heard anything. For me, the field is what it is. I know it's been chic nowadays for these trainers to scratch at the last minute. I'm sick of it. They're so afraid to run horses now and take the L. Give you an example or how different it was. This year kind of reminds me of the Belmont in 2006 when Jazzle won it. And I will mention from my late mother, one of her greatest handicapping feats is she called the trifecta cold, straight. Jazzle, Bluegrass Cat, Steppenwolfer. And she got paid nicely on it, Anyway, the thing about that race was Bob and John was the favorite as the pace, and guess who trained him? Bob Baffert. And it was I believe it was a 14-horse field. That was the year that Barbaro, of course, met his demise in the Preakness, and Bernardini didn't run the Belmont after winning the Preakness. But my point is, it was a big field, and there were a lot of horses in there who had no bloody chance at all winning the race at 1.5 miles. And nowadays, look what happens. You go, oh, yeah, we got a full field of 12, and how many times does it go down to 7 or 6? Why didn't Vibe run the blame? Because Pletcher was afraid he's going to get the L. So he moves him to a 1-turn mile, which he's always been running at. Take the chance. He had as good a chance as anybody winning that race, but they're so afraid their numbers are going to get compromised. They won't run these horses. They scratch them all the time. It sucks. And it just really pisses me off. And you get all excited about a 10, 12-horse field, and then it gets cut down to 6, Anyway, off my soapbox. Oh, it's John, right? CSJ? Okay. Oselli is not going to the Belmont. He's going to the Ohio Derby. Okay, Sean. Well, I didn't like him anyway, to be quite honest. I'm not sure I like him in the Ohio Derby. Sorry, but I am fading the cockfighting Ortiz boys. They will be held back by cruelty to animals, karma. Yeah, that's been a popular topic on X. I don't condone cockfighting. Um, I'm sure Pete is going to have a field day, and they'll be protesting at the Belmont. They protest at Saratoga every year, and then they go at 5 o'clock. They mysteriously disappear and go have a cocktail. Not to say, you know what I mean. But anyway, I wouldn't fade the Ortiz boys just on that, Daniel. Brad had 3 wins in a row, and I had all 3 today at Churchill Downs. You have to divorce yourself from that type of stuff. You just got to concentrate on what they do on the track. That's just what I would say. I think you're saying that tongue in cheek. I'm guessing, Daniel. Hi, Paula Patain. I had not seen you before. I hope that's pronouncing it right. Good to see you. Chief Wallaby ran a solid derby for me, 7-2 or higher. He's a must use. I would agree. I think that's very reasonable odds, and he will definitely be a horse I will be using. Yep, agreed with Oselli assessment. That was a career highlight. Yeah, I think so. Oselli is running. Okay. All right. So Oselli is out. All right. So I guess we know that. Okay. Well, thank you for the intel. I tend to wait till see what exactly transpires before I get into that. Okay. My gut tells me. Oh, wait. I keep forgetting I can show you guys this stuff. My gut tells me a Wallaby Renegade Exacta might be good, but I can't bet the Ortiz boys. Well, like I said, Dan, I get you. I think that's a pretty good Exacta. On the surface, that makes sense to me. I did a little interesting thing that I'll show you guys later when it comes to the pace on who actually would end up winning the race. Just based on the pace numbers. Just a funky little thing I did just for fun, just to see how it would pan out. But we'll get to that. Let's see. Junior Alvarado is incredibly overrated due to association with Mott. He's a good rider. He's a good. It's Rob, right? I apologize. Just tell me what your name is again, Pix. I'm sorry. I don't think he's overrated. I don't think he's underrated. I think he's rated. I think he's just about where he is. He rode a nice winner for me today at Churchill Downs on a horse that wasn't expected to do terribly well. And he's also given some rides that I think are kind of questionable. It's just so I think he's about. I think people assess him about what he is. If I play the superfecta, I am sure Vitruvian Man will be in it. You know what? I would have been with you, Daniel, until I did the pace numbers of the Santa Anita Derby. He runs like a stalker who's not fast enough. I expected his late fraction to be a lot better than it actually was. It's like 50. You're not going to make it. I mean, unless they pull him. They may pull him way the hell back and just say, let's try to suck up for third. That's possible. So will he be off my tickets? Probably not. This is the kind of race that you could almost push the all button for 4th place. I think the Chief just likes to run with the pack. Might be, Ernie. I will tell you this. The horse I saw beat the Puma in his maiden debut. I said, this horse knows what he's doing. And he's an athlete. That's what I saw. I was excited as hell after I watched his maiden. Where has that horse gone? What's the issue? Bigger fields, classier horses, and it's still his fifth start. Now, what's keeping him up amongst the leaders? They're all like fifth or sixth start. I mean, I hate to keep harkening back to the old days, but it wasn't too long ago. A horse would have like 6 or 7 races before he ran in the Derby. Most of the horses would have like 10. You can go even farther back than that. When you go way back, some of these horses had 15 or 20 starts before they got to the Derby. So it's tough because the other problem with this, the light bulb can all of a sudden go off. But yeah, I wonder about that sometimes, Ernie, myself. Doug O'Neill is sneaky. Yes, Debbie. I call him Dangerous Doug. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Belmont is the best trainer in the East, in my opinion. Dick Mandela is the Belmont of the West Coast. Turf, dirt, sprint route, doesn't matter. He's just an excellent trainer. I say that because Nick Zito, in his day, was a trainer you never bet when he was the favorite. Never. And I'll tell you why. When you do a paddock tour of Saratoga, you can't get near his barn. Wouldn't let anybody there. When Lauren Stick, the pedigree writer for Daily Race Form, who I know and I had correspondence with, she told me couldn't get anything out of him about his 2-year-olds. He's a betting man. Okay? He likes to come out of the woodwork. He likes to lie in the weeds. Nick Zito does. When you get him in a race with odds, watch out. The Tara in the Belmont when Big Brown had the foot issues, 48-1. Believe that's the highest odds ever to win the Belmont. I'm not sure about that. But Doug O'Neill, same thing. I don't know if he's a betting man or not, but I know this. I never bet Doug O'Neill horses when they're favored, but I will bet them when they're not because he's sneaky good like that. You're absolutely right. And when I play the West Coast or Turfway or, Doug O'Neill's been East now, if they're the favorite, But if he's an overlay, yeah. If he's under in the weeds and nobody's expecting it, look out. Let's see. Bernie, what do you say? I think Emerging Market had a slow start because of all his sickness, and now it could be. He's an X Factor horse in this race, in my opinion. Stella Artois, in case anyone's wondering. Emerging Market, to me, holds the race in his hands in a lot of ways to me. I think he showed something in the Derby. I think he was ready to run a big race. I do think losing his shoe compromised his chances to a certain extent, but he was a little too close. And hey, it was only his third start. So to finish 10th with those type of issues, I think he did pretty damn well. But what you have to ask yourself is, and this is the thing that I'm wondering about, that's a monumental thing to do in your third start, is run a mile and a quarter in a 20-horse field. Can he move forward, or doesn't have to necessarily move forward? Can he run well coming off of that? Because, we talk about this all the time. They brought it up quite a bit recently about how you can really ruin a horse, putting them in the Derby too early. So you got to wonder about that. But is this a horse that, on the numbers, just looking at the preliminary pace numbers, understanding that he threw his shoe, he's pretty commensurate with the other Derby horses who are running in the Belmont. But I got some questions about him. I want to definitely see what Mike Welsh has to say, the paddock reports. That's going to be telling to me. Okay. RoboCop. Hi, RoboCop. You're still yelling. I don't see Golden Tempo coming in first or second. I think he may be fourth. I really like Renegade. He is the most versatile. I wonder how growth equity will factor in. Yeah, I on the surface right now, that looks pretty good to me. I think Renegade is the most versatile horse. I think he can handle the mile and a quarter. I have no doubt about that. And let's not forget the Derby. You look at it. Who were the two horses that we weren't worried about the distance? Golden Tempo, Renegade had no questions whatsoever. The others weren't quite all the way with. Growth Equity is a very interesting horse, but again, remember this: he just came out of the Peter Pan. That is the traditional prep for the Belmont. But what he beat? Not a lot, but he did do it in a very professional way. And you do have a smaller field size than you would have in the Derby. Entirely possible. He looks pretty good right now. Again, I got to dive a little deeper, and when I do my post on it, I will have done that. So, let's see. Okay. Ado is Brad's best horse. We will find out next Sunday. Irad will be leaving Saratoga Sunday to ride him at Churchill Downs. I don't think Further Ado is one of the better 3-year-olds. I've said it all along. I'm sorry, I don't. He may be Brad Cox's best 3-year-old. I don't think he's as nearly as good. Now, when he's running at Keeneland in the fall, I'll be all over him. You can bet that. Not anywhere else. I just don't think he's the same horse outside of Keeneland. I think it's been proven. Yeah, sometimes, but part of being a good trainer is placing your horses. And if Alan Jerkins was a master at it, the chief, he beat Secretariat twice, prove out an onion of watching what the competition does, knowing who's vulnerable, and that's when you strike. So he's a good placer of his horses. It may seem like he's throwing shit on the wall, but I think there's a little more to it than that. I'll give him a little more credit. Now we got another new fella. Hello, William Rayborn. Welcome aboard. Good to see you. I haven't seen you before. Where do you rank the Louisiana Derby as a prep race? I was there, and it was awful. After Golden Tempo won, many handicappers now try and say it was a good race. I don't think it was a great race. I was pretty vocal about that, William, in my elements of handicapping. I thought the Louisiana prep races were towards the bottom. I thought, as I recall, they were only the New York ones were below them, and that was it. It went New York, Louisiana, Arkansas, California. Like New York, California, Louisiana, Arkansas, Florida. Florida was clearly the best. But yeah, I don't think it was a good prep race. What I think they're saying, William, and there's a little bit of truth to it, and this is something Scott and I talked about, and this was something that he spotted that I didn't, is that the thing with Golden Tempo is the middle fraction. And it makes perfect sense, right? Because he's so far back, he's really got to kick it into high gear before any of the others do. What I think the point is that, well, if he hadn't ducked in, if he'd stayed to the outside, he had a better chance. I think that's probably, there's some merit to that. I mean, look what Pavlovian did in the Derby. He nothing, right? Emerging market through his shoes, so we don't really know. I thought it was an okay Derby race, but not Derby prep, but not one of the better ones. There were some decent performances in it, but as far as the overall field being a really solid race, I think the Florida races were superior. I hope that answers your question. Okay, let's see. Paula, emerging market, less than 6-1. Could be. New York horse, Seth Klarman, you have to remember that. Mike Stone. Hi, Mike. I haven't seen you before. Good to see you. Commandment has small legs. His stride is not mind-blowing. Atino will outrun him at the classic distance. That's entirely possible, Mike. That's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. That is something about Commandment I did know beforehand. I had heard about the GPS data as far as stride lengths, and one of the things that was mentioned about Commandment, little horse, short strides, going to be a problem. Like I said, I'm not thinking. I think Atino. I will say this: Atino has the highest genetic strength value score in this field. Golden Tempo had it for the Derby. Not saying he's going to win, but this is a horse who I think a mile and a quarter meets between the eyes. Still has to run fast enough. Not sure about that, but I think he'll get the distance, and you could very well be right. He's definitely going to be a price horse you want to be paying attention to, I think. Let's see. This will be the best Triple Crown race of the three. The one who shows who's the best horse actually. Ernie, you have the same answer for every question, don't you? And I don't disagree with you. I do think Renegade's the best 3-year-old. I do. I mean, we'll see what happens when Paladin comes back, but I think Renegade is the best, and I think he's the best candidate to win this race. Looks like Power Shift and Chad's Peter Pan horse in the lead. I don't think Growth Equity is going to be on the lead. I think he'll be just off of Power Shift. I think Power Shift's going to have the lead kind of by default. But I'll tell you this. When you do the pace numbers, emerging market, he had the best early fraction of any of them for the first pace call. So don't be surprised. I don't think he's going to have to run because the Derby was quick. So I don't think he'll have to be that will carry him to leading this race. But I think he'll be up amongst them. Yeah, Power Shift's probably going to be on the lead by default. Would be my guess. All O'Neills are sneaky. You would know, wouldn't you, Sean? Vitruvian, will he be up front? I don't think so. I think they will put him at the rear and just hope for a suck up. Nick Zito had a horse in the Belmont many years ago named Hemingway's Key. Just to give you an example, he had no business being the Belmont, none at all, except for one thing. He had the pedigree to run 1.5 miles, and he'd keep running, and guess what? I think he ended up 3rd or 4th. That's all he's in there for. This horse has a decent 2-turn pedigree. He's just not fast enough. He's not classy enough to win it, but I don't think he'll be up front. I think he'll be dead at the back with Golden Tempo, and he'll make one run. Wallaby doesn't need blinkers. I never liked that move. As I said, for the elements of handicap, Mike, I trust Bill Mott implicitly. If he thinks it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. I get it. I know what you mean. And I don't know that it's necessarily helped Chief Wallaby the same way it really hasn't helped Golden Tempo, I don't think, that much. Golden Tempo's still running the same way. Chief Wallaby still looks a little distracted. If he gets a better ride, he gets more forwardly placed, which I think will likely happen in the Belmont, it'll all may be moot. But is it a reason to throw him out? No. But maybe you discount a little bit as a win candidate. I would tend to agree with you on that. Okay. RoboCop. Alex, does growth equity factor in? He seems to be getting better. Yes. But again, we have to remember a couple of things. Now, the fact that most of these horses are lightly raced marginalizes the argument against growth equity, because you'd say, well, he hasn't had too many starts, and, it's more a case of who did you beat last time. I think the credentials are there. I liked the way he won that race. He did it very professionally. He did it very, like emerging market. That's why we liked him for the Derby. He won the Louisiana Derby very professionally. Had to like it. But it's such a this is a big step up. These are battle-tested horses who have already gone a mile and a quarter, most of them, and have been in classier races. He's one that I'm got to look a little deeper into, but on the face, I think he's one to consider. Yes. And when I put my Belmont video out, you will know exactly how I feel about it. Daniel Speller. Oh, another new face. Hi, Daniel. This Belmont really lacks pace. Who will lead? I think it's probably going to be Power Shift. I don't know who else it would be. I don't know. This is one of those. You know what? Here's a funky thing. Now you remember that Belmont Stakes over the weekend. There was no pace in that race, and Liberal Arts had been a stone closer his whole career, and all of a sudden, boom, he breaks like a shot out of a cannon, and he's right to the front. And you're like, he's going to lead him. Same thing with Original Sin. They read the tea leaves. They saw there was no pace. So it's like, what the hell? We'll go to the front. Nobody else wants it. We'll do it. Maybe Vitruvian Man, they'll do it that way. But I don't think so. I don't think he's good enough. I think he'll be folding his 10 real quick. I think it's going to be Power Shift. It would be more than likely. Looking at the pace numbers, he has one of them. I think he's second to Emerging Market as the highest early fraction. And I think Emerging Markets was the product of having a really fast pace. So if you think of it in those terms, Power Shift's probably going to go to lead. I don't think he necessarily wants to. I just think he's going to be there by default. Here's an interesting concept. I love the idea of Wallaby going to the front here. You know what, Mike? Here's what makes that point for you. Remember the Breeders' Cup last year in the Distaff? Scylla? Okay. Bill Mott couldn't figure that horse out, or I think he was having trouble figuring it out. That horse started with a big splash. We thought was going to be great. A two-turn horse. All of a sudden, he moves back to sprints. Why? We're like, what? Why? And then he sends him out west, sends her out west to run at Del Mar against Adair Manor, and doesn't quite get it done there. And I loved her that day. And it was just a horse like, she always seemed to be underachieving. And what was the thing that Bill Mott finally did in the Distaff? He said, screw it, put her on the lead, and let's see how far she can go. And she won decisively. Could Bill Mott do that with this horse? Possible. But Scylla Scylla was half the Tacitus. She had two-turn pedigree all day long. Close Hatches was her mare. Chief Wallaby has good pedigree for two turns, but not great. It's a little questionable on the dam side. So I'm not going to try to second-guess Bill Mott. Would he do it? Possibly. But it's a tall order. After having run a mile and a quarter already, to do it again now on the front end, I don't know. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting thought. I don't think you can bank on it. That's all I'm saying. I don't think I think that would be a last resort kind of move, and I don't think we're there yet with the Chief. Okay. Johnny V now on Commandment. I can't use Johnny V. For me is impossible to cash on. He loves being wide or finding traffic. Oh God, no. No, Paul. No way. Johnny V is a Hall of Famer, and he's a Hall of Famer for a reason. The reason he would be on Commandment, I would say, is that one of the things that Johnny V does very well with young horses in particular, he gets them to relax. He's the best jockey I've ever seen. Sprint, route, turf, dirt, doesn't matter. 2-year-olds, older horses, 3-year-olds. He's phenomenal. You should never, if anything, putting Johnny V in a horse enhances their chances, doesn't lessen them. Cannot disagree with you more on that, Paul. Let's see. As I recall, Constitution Mike was not a front runner. He was kind of a pace presser. Let's see. If Belmont still loves those blinkers, okay, fine. Put that horse on the lead and make that horse feel like he's not running with anyone. Possible, Mike. I can see it. I know exactly what you're saying. Renegade is going to be very tough to beat. That's right. That's right, Rob. Oh, thanks. Okay, I'm just catching up here, guys. Okay. Power Shift is in the race because he's been working really well with Renegade in the morning, and he's a different type of running style. Okay. He's not a rabbit, though. He is not a rabbit. I'll guarantee you he is not a rabbit. That doesn't make any sense to me that they would do that. That helps Golden Tempo. They don't want to do that. I don't think Renegade needs it to win this race. I really don't. Okay. If Renegade wins this race, then I will say he has class. Jerry's still out. Not for me. He's got the class. He's the best horse in this field. I can tell you right now. He is the best horse in this Belmont Stakes field. And provided that he recovered from the Derby okay, I think he's going to win the race. I haven't looked at it real solidly yet, but I can't. It's going to be very, very hard to beat him. Okay, let's see. Tyler, I haven't heard from you in a while. Agreed on the rabbit part. Rapoli outright owns Power Shift, only part owner of Renegade, I believe, as well. That's right. Would not make sense to set a rabbit. I think they're going to give Power Shift a legitimate shot. I think it's more, I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those things where Naira goes to Mike Rapoli and says, we need horses. We need pace. Horse will run up amongst the front. What can you give us? It's a little early for him to run in the Belmont, in my opinion, but it's been early for a lot of these. Emerging Market, Chief Wallaby, it's just one of those years. It's a funky year with all these horses with very little experience and little seasoning. I just don't think he's good enough to win the race. I think he's, especially when he's probably by default going to be on the lead. Paul, okay, I'm sorry, CSJ, Paul, okay. A 95 buyer won the Derby. Any horse that gets better can win. Who's going to do it? I don't know. This could be the lowest Belmont in history. I think the Tara has the lowest. But I think what we know so far about this class is it's a little overrated prior to the Derby. As far as classic distances go, I think we've got, and let me just say this right off the bat. They're talking about the Woody Stevens. Nobody is talking about Solitude Dude. That's the best 3-year-old of all of them. I heard they mentioned some other 3-year-old, and they said, oh, can't wait to see Crude Velocity in the Woody Stevens. I'm like, and he mentioned a couple others and not Solitude Dude. He's the best 3-year-old in the country going away. I hope everybody thinks that, because I'll bet that horse till the cows come home. If he's running in the Woody Stevens, he's the best 3-year-old in the country. This crop is, I don't think we've only got like 2 or 3 really true 1.25 mile horses. I think Golden Tempo, Renegade, So we could have a really low Belmont. It's entirely possible. Okay. Oh, Felipe, the blame stakes we talked about, it was just a funky race. There was no pace in it. It was just a weird race. It's horse racing. It's just what happens now. You think Vibe, the whole race sets up for him, and all of a sudden Pletcher scratches him because it's a two-turn race and not one. You can argue Pletcher opted for the Met Mile due to it's a grade one with more prestige than the Blame. Even though it's around two turns, it's a much easier spot. So why is he running here? I think he's probably a one-turn horse. Josh, and welcome, Josh. Haven't seen you before. That would be my guess. He probably looked at it and said 2 turns, only a couple of starts. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. He thinks he's better at 1 turn. What happened at Madhouse? I'd love to know, RoboCop, because I was all over that horse. I loved that horse in that race. Cornucopian decided to run the way he used to. And I don't know if there was a bounce or whatnot, but yeah, he just didn't run. He just didn't run. Your guess is as good as mine. I was really disappointed in Madhouse. I singled him in the pick 5 and just, okay. Sal. Hi, Sal. Haven't seen you before. Welcome aboard. Boy, a lot of newcomers. Good to have all you guys. Thanks for coming. You think they're using AI to do the morning line odds? I don't think so. I think David Aragon is a pretty good morning line maker. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what it is. But no, I don't think they maybe there's some track out there that's trying to save a little money and is doing it, but for the most part, they've got humans doing that. Okay, Rob says the breed is watered down. Well, Rob, they're producing less and less foals every year. And they're only going to like 2 or 3 sires for the big time races. Curlin, Into Mischief, Gun Runner. Constitution a little bit now, a little bit of Tappet. I don't know if it's watered down, but maybe what I would say is it needs a new injection of blood. The old days, they used to syndicate, go get a horse from Europe and bring him over to reinvigorate the blood. I don't know if they've been doing that. I'd like to see it. Claiborne Farm used to be in, Bull Hancock was the master at it. Antonio Banderas. Oh, we have a celebrity in our midst. Hi, Antonio. Is the most competitive Belmont Stakes in recent history. I don't know. The thing about the Belmont is more than any other Triple Crown race is that it separates the wheat from the chaff. They call it the test of the champion, right? Well, one of the things about it is all those Derby hopefuls who ran in the Kentucky Derby, who you say this horse has no business being there, they don't run in the Belmont because they said, hey, we took our shot, we're going home. So the Belmont usually is a race where you get the serious best horses of the crop at 2 turns. Is this the most competitive in recent history? I don't know. I think it's going to be a really good race. It'd be hard to say, but I think it's going to be a really good race. And yes, it's going to be a very competitive one. Horses are not as durable. That's true. But also, I guess I should say, I'll just talk a little bit, get off the Belmont a little bit, just talk in general about horses. Yes, they run less than they used to. And there is a school of thought that says, using Lasix as liberally as they did kind of weakens the crop, weakens the breed. And I suppose there's a little truth to that. And I'm not an expert by any means. I'll tell you what it is, because you're really seeing it now. I'll give you some examples to give you the time frame. There was a time 20 years ago where they said if you had a 5-week gap between your last Derby prep and the Kentucky Derby, you couldn't win. And there was only one horse who had ever done it, and that was Needles in 1956. Fast forward 50 years, Barbaro takes 5 weeks off. He's clearly the best horse in the Derby, and he wins the race. As soon as the trainers saw that, oh, now I can take 5 weeks off and nobody can complain. Now I can take 6 weeks off and nobody complains. Circular Key ran that year on a 6 weeks rest, and everybody's like, oh, no way, he'll never make it. Well, he wasn't that good. My point is that over time, Justify wins the Triple Crown without racing it too. Curse of Apollo, right? That one's gone. So now we don't have to race our great horses at 2 years old. We can run them at 3. Can more go wrong the longer they've run, the more times they've run? Yes. Does it compromise trainers' statistics? Yes. That's why, more than anything else, it isn't the fact that these horses are brittle. It's the fact that trainers don't have any balls. Wayne Lucas, why everybody said, look at Wayne, he runs his horses all the time. Well, because they can. You know, he's not afraid to run a horse. He doesn't care. What does Wayne Lucas have to prove? He's a Hall of Famer. He was a legend. Rest in peace. We miss him. You take your chances where you can. He was willing to roll the dice. He could see where some of these trainers are holding their horses back or afraid to run them. I'll put mine in and go ahead and win the Preakness with Seize the Gray. So are they as sturdy as they used to be? Probably not. You don't see a lot of them running at 4. That was the proving ground. That's where you determined who the stallions were, who can carry weight in the handicap division. We don't even have a handicap division anymore. Now look how distorted it is. How many horses are scratching that are listed? Monday, we get the PPs. We handicap the race. We're all set, and boom, 2 or 3 scratch. Every week now. Because these guys are afraid to compromise their stats. It's not that the horses are that infirm. It isn't. It has a lot of it to do with the trainers being afraid to take the L. There you go. Are they as durable? They're not. That's true, but that's another part of it. I think horses must watch. Deborah. Oh, we haven't seen you before. Deborah, how are you? I think horses that we must watch, I'm guessing, is Emerging Market, Chief Wallaby. Yeah. I'm more I think Emerging Market is perhaps more professional, but I think Chief Wallaby has more potential. Tough call between the two of them. But yeah, we got to watch both. You're absolutely right. Michael from Stuttgart. Is Renegade worth singling at the favorite's price he's sure to bring? Do you believe he'll be moved up even more positionally, making him playable? A lot of funky things happen on Belmont Day. Like I mentioned to you earlier, Bob and John was the favorite in 2006. Still don't know why. Couldn't believe it. I was like, couldn't believe our luck. I was like, Jazzle's going to win that race. I knew that after the Derby. And I knew Bluegrass Cat, who finished second to Barbaro, many lengths behind, but wasn't as bad as we thought. And Steppenwolfer was a dead closer. They figured Bob and Johnny's a long pace. He'll wire the field. It's Bob Baffert. Bob and John wasn't even close to good enough to do that. What I would say, Michael, is, what do we always talk about in these big races? Have an opinion, right? If you feel Renegade's the best horse in the race, I would bet him. Um, what's fair odds on him in a 10-horse field where perhaps 7 are really bona fide contenders in this race? I mean, I'd bet him at 9-5, 8-5. I might even take him at 7-5 and hopefully I get some value underneath and exact that. Sequentially, he's a pretty good bet for a single, I think. Got to look at everything else, got to look at the sequence. But if he's a short price, I think it's kind of an all or nothing thing with Renegade, would be the way I would look at it. But I think he's the one to beat right now, it seems to be. I got to look at it deeper. I want to qualify that. But I'm thinking right now, he looks pretty good to me. Okay, let's catch up here. Sarava won the Belmont. 9. That's right, Rob. Thank you. Kenny McPeak. 2002. That's right. Okay, Daniel. All right, Daniel's got a question for you guys. Let's see what's opening up. Just curious, anybody noticed a horse that is working really well for this race? I have not heard anything myself, Daniel. I'm going to start watching the clock of reports. Mike Welsh is the best. He's the best. Now, I'll tell you, the day of the race, I'm hoping we get Maggie Wolfendale or Acacia, one of those two. They're awesome. This kind of race, you really want to pay attention to what they look like in the paddock. Big, Saratoga, big crowd. I haven't heard anything. So I'm not a good person to ask about that. I'll open it up. If anybody has anything, I'll certainly apprise you of it as I see it come here. I'm sorry. I'm a greenhorn. One of these days I'll figure out how to use this thing. Stella is good. Yeah, I like Stella too, Ernie. I'll tell you a funny story just to go off the beaten path a little bit. 30 years ago, I was in Europe. And I went all through Western Europe, and I finished up in Paris. And I'd been drinking Heineken all through Europe. Their Heineken is not pasteurized. It's superior to what we get here. But I got to Paris, and I just said, my last couple of days, I want an American beer. So I walk in a bar, and I say, yeah, can I have a Budweiser? And they go, the Budweiser. The woman was really gave me all kinds of attitude. Guy sitting next to me goes, why don't you order a French beer? And I said, because it's monkey piss. And the reason being, I know if I didn't stand my ground then, I know they would just be all over me. And he kind of, sneered at me a little bit, but I got to talk to him. He's actually a really good guy. But the funny thing is, I get back to the States, I discover Stella Artois, and I love it. That's basically all I drink. So didn't mean to digress. Further Ado did win at Churchill, John. That's correct. But not as impressively. Not what I talked about with him was he looked like a very different horse, and that was not a good Jockey Club field he beat. Nobody's come back from that race to be any good. So, okay. Okay. I put the caps on my words so you can see. Well, thank you, RoboCop. No problem. No. I know that. I was just kidding with you. It's okay. How do you find trainer intent for a horse in the past performances? Very good question, Sal. Excellent question. Okay. You have to think of the past performances as for each horse as a little story. Every horse has a story. It's like for your life, if all your events in your life were listed, and people could get a good idea how you arrived at where you are, right? So when you look at the past performances, it's a really big part of my handicapping, to be honest, at this stage of the game. It's, we always talk about it. When you watch my videos, I always talk about putting a ribbon on the race. What's the ribbon? What's the one commonality? What brings this whole race together? Is it class? Is it speed? Is it pace? Is it form? Um, is it race shape? You know, you determine that by looking at the past performances. Now, when you read the past performances, start from the very bottom with their first race and work your way up. As you do it, you look and go, okay, his first race, they put him in a maiden special weight, and he didn't do too well, had a little bit of trouble. Okay, what they do in the next race? So the next race, they put him right back at the same distance, at the same track, maiden special weight. A couple weeks later, looked a little better. Didn't have any trouble getting there, starting to get it. Third race, put him in another maiden special weight at a different track because the meet was over. Same distance, and he wins. Okay, put it all together. So this is a horse who's improving. So you do that with each race. Now he moves into an allowance. That's logical, right? It's the next condition. How does he do there? Well, he didn't do too well. Now, you look at that race. Was it because he was running against winners for the first time? Was it the race too good for him? Was it the distance? Maybe they moved him to a different distance or whatever. But as you look at all the races, it should give you a pattern of what the trainer's trying to do with him. So, like, I'll give you a great example. Belmont in the old days. Not so much now. He still does it a little bit now. But the big thing with Belmont was second off the layoff. You could bet if a horse was coming off the layoff, the first race Belmont was going to put him in was an optional claimer or an allowance race. And you also knew that horse wasn't going to be tuned up all the way. So you wanted to bet against him, even if he was the favorite. Why? Belmont's pointing for the next race, which is a graded stakes race, more than likely. That's when you want him. That's trainer intent. So if that gives you a little bit of idea, you always look at the horse overall, how they compare to the rest of the field, and what's the intent there. Why is that horse in that race? Why is a horse who's run, all right, Coal Battle, for instance. Well, not greatest example because he'd run on turf before, but every once in a while you see a horse who's only run on dirt. And all of a sudden he's in a turf race. Usually after he's had every chance to prove himself in his career, and he's proven he's not one of the best dirt horses. Why do they put him on turf? They got no other choice. Got to find some way to make this horse, find a niche for this horse. That's what trainer intent's all about. I hope that makes sense. And you'll get, the more you think about it, if you just ask yourself, why is this horse in this race? It should become clear from the past performances. Catholic angle. Well, I know Scott's going to like that. Original sin just won. Will commandment be next? You never know. You never know. If Florida, okay. Ernie, if Florida was the best prep race, why aren't those horses winning? Fair question. Well, first of all, I think Renegade was better than is the best 3-year-old, and he's proven it as such. Whether or not any of the Florida horses could beat Renegade remains to be seen. They all ran in the same race, the Kentucky Derby. Only one of them can win. Commandment had some issues. Chief Wallaby had a bad ride. The Puma didn't run. And I'm not sure any one of them is a true 1.25 mile horse. Be very, very honest. I had major issues with the Puma. I had big question marks about him if he had run. He's a really nice horse. But I don't know if 1.25 miles was the distance he wants. So, okay, let's see. Glad you did well today. Thank you, RoboCop. Okay, it's okay, RoboCop. I just talk into my Chinese. Following it capitalizes words in the middle of the sentence and not at the beginning, and no telling. You guys talk amongst yourselves about that. Oh, Ruben Garza. Hi, Ruben. Haven't seen you before. Welcome aboard. Who will finish stronger at this distance, Chief Wallaby or Emerging Market? Optimally, if they both ran their best race, tough call. I think Chief Wallaby has the potential to, but right now it might be Emerging Market. It's hard to separate those two. I'm giving the edge to Chief Wallaby because when he decides to run, I really like that electric kick he has. It's just a question of, is he going to put it into gear soon enough? I don't know that I can say that about Emerging Market just yet, but I do like him as a horse. That's a tough call. Okay, let's see. My lock of the year runs in the Acorn, Prom Queen. That'd be nice to give Brad Cox a good stakes win. I'm not sure he's going to get it on Belmont Day. We'll see. Watch the trip she had in the Kentucky Oaks. Okay. Meaning was tough in the Oaks, Felipe says. Yes. I'm not sold on Meaning as a horse yet. I see her as kind of a plotter. Let's see. Daniel asks, why would Cox run Commandment in the Belmont if he thought he couldn't get? Well, what else is he going to do? He said prior to the Derby, he was quoted as saying, I'm not sure how far this horse wants to go. When was the last time you heard trainers say that about any horse? What do they always say? Oh, he can run all day, no problem. Cox is very candid. And again, I'll go back to why did he run in the Mucho Macho Man? I don't think he was sure. But look at this crop. Take Renegade out of the equation. Take Golden Tempo out of the equation. Are any of them 1.25 mile horses? Maybe, maybe not. So why not take a chance? Plus, he has demonstrated the kind of grit that sometimes can make up for it. I think it's a hard sell to me. I think he's a nice horse. I'm just not sure about him at 1.25 miles. But I think he's going to get some owner pressure. And he only finished 7th in the Derby. The owners were like, hey, we'll throw him back in the Belmont, smaller field, less traffic issues. He's got a shot, right? Is he going to say no? No, of course not. Gets a monumental jockey change from Castellano to Pratt. Pratt on Prom Queen. Johnny V, I'll assume that means the Beast. I agree. Yes, Ruben. Ruben Jimenez, I haven't seen you before. Thank you. Good to see you. No, Paul, we're just going to agree to disagree on that. I don't care how old he is. That's one of the best jockeys there is. He could teach a Rad, Jose. He could teach any of them anything. The guy's a master. I would never not bet a horse because Johnny Velasquez is on him. Now, conversely, Mike Smith has had a bit of a renaissance at Santa Anita, but he's not quite what he used to be. The only jockey that really, to me is like a wild card, like that I get excited to see his name, but I'm just not sure if we're going to get what we used to, is Kent DeSormo because of his personal issues. But man, when that guy's right, he is the best turf rider. And he did it this weekend. He won on with a sneaky good horse. And yes, Anthony, haven't seen you before, Anthony Y5. Napoleon Solo did get sold. Yeah. You're right, Ernie. I agree with you. Felipe says, so you guys can say, greenhorn equals rookie. Good knowledge. That's right. The other one I like is Tenderfoot. You know, that for those of you who were in the Boy Scouts, Tenderfoot is a good rookie name. Okay, let's see. Rob says Johnny V could not shine. I don't know about that. Is power shift to Tyler asks, is power shift to complete toss? Yes. To me, probably will be. Um, I, I can't. I just can't see it. I don't think he's. I mean, when horses are, they start their career. If they're pretty good, most of the time they've got to run one race on the front end. But over time, they, particularly with Todd Pletcher's horses, they learn how to rate. He insists upon it. That's why he wins a lot of races at Saratoga. Not only does he get good stock, but he teaches them how to rate and run professionally early. But I just don't think this horse wants to do it. I think he's going to have to. And then that's a really big ask. And his pace numbers, indicate that he's probably going to fold. And I can't see him sticking around. Anthony, Renegade ain't a closer. You are correct. He is not a closer. All right. Now, you guys haven't figured out by now, Ernie Marshall is the president of the Renegade fan club. Renegade doesn't need a rabbit. I'm not saying that. I'm saying having two different horses in the field with different running styles better as you. Fair enough. Yeah. The only reason that he's in the race is because he's running well with Renegade in the morning. Could be. Could very well be. Let's see. Paco. Yeah, I'm not a Paco fan. Golden Tempo is a good horse too. You're right, Anthony. He is, but just here's the thing. We talked about this earlier. Maybe you weren't here, but I'll rehash it very quickly. Golden Tempo is a stone closer. Golden Tempo needs pace to run to. Renegade does not. That's the big difference. Golden Tempo had an ideal situation for him to run and win the Kentucky Derby. He had pace to run to. It collapsed. He was far out of trouble from it, and he had plenty of time to get going and win the race. Renegade, conversely, got slammed at the break, had some trouble there. And he Golden Tempo just moved a little, got the jump on him a little bit. But if I had to run that race again, I'll guarantee you with a better post position, Renegade wouldn't have lost. That's my feeling on it. I think the Belmont does not set up as well for Golden Tempo at all. I think it's fine for Renegade, to answer your question. Let's see. Yeah, I felt bad for Hit Show too, because when Vibe scratched, that's who I used. 97 Belmont. Hit Show, yeah. The blame was just an aberration. That was just a bad race. Nicotine, hi. Good to see you. Am I the only one that still doesn't like Golden Tempo? No. I think he will run his race, but without pace to run to, I think it's going to be very difficult for him to win this leg too. I see him more for third or fourth, maybe second. Let's see. Belmont is the best of the best. Okay. Saratoga is not a true Belmont. Should have an asterisk being, perhaps. But the Preakness wasn't run at Pimlico, and the only fair odds are on the winner. There's no value in losing wager. That's correct. Okay, Paula. Paula, you have been patiently listening. Thank you. Pace handicapping is about as clear as mud right now. Perhaps you could actually take the running line and plug numbers in so we can see actual work. Just a formula not working for me. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, Paula. Um, I thought when I did my presentation last week, I thought it was pretty clear on how you do it. Um, I, I think the more you give it a chance, the more it will make sense to you. I really believe that. It's hard at first. It takes a little getting used to. Um, but we're going to show in case you guys didn't realize, I'm sort of hoping Scott may show up, and if he does, then we will. I'm sorry, I'm just checking to see if Scott's in touch with me. He said he would likely come on just to add some thoughts. So, and that's why we're going to wait. I'm going to give it a little while longer, and then we'll show the pace numbers. Okay, it's going to make sense to you, Paula. Just give it a little time. I promise you. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Decently competitive, but nowhere near a great race. No great horses who would be in the race at 1/8, regardless of setup, and a few of the trainers are greatly overrated. Can't wait till back at a mile and a half. Well, I think MD22. I'm not sure if we've seen you before, but good to see you. And tell me what your name is, please, so I don't have to call you MD unless you want me to. Um, yeah, I mean, well, the thing about the Belmont always to remember is it's the test of the champion, right? It's a mile and a half. It's a distance they're never going to run again. Most of them will never run it again. And you think the Derby's tough, but then you add another quarter mile to it, and that's your Belmont. So, um, a few of the trainers are greatly overrated. I can't go there with you, MD. I think that the the best trainers in this race are the best for a reason. Brad Cox, Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher, Bill Mott. Hard to argue with any of their records. I don't think they're overrated at all. I think Bill Mott should be a household word like D. Wayne Lucas, but he's not because of he tends to be a little more conservative. And he's just recently now started to really move 3-year-olds along the Derby trail. There was a time he was never, he never thought of him about the Derby because he was always patient and took his time, and they would run great as an older horse. But he's to me in the public's eye, he's underrated, not amongst horse players, but I don't think they're overrated. I couldn't go there. Let's see. Bob had to have a chance in the Met Mile. Don't know. Got to see what the field is. And I haven't seen a liquid media either. So whatever, please tell me what your name is so I don't have to call you a liquid, unless you want me to. But I don't know. I mean, I did look at the field very briefly. That's a stacked race. That's a really good race. 3-year-old, or no, he's not a 3-year-old. It'd be I think I looked at the field pretty briefly, and from what I saw, I said this is about as stacked a field as you're going to get. I'd have to believe a horse who just won an allowance race. Probably not. That would be my guess. All right. WBAF. Don't use language like that on my site. Okay? Just don't. I understand maybe some exasperation, but I don't want to see that here. Please respect me and everybody else on the site. Okay? No problem. Saez blew the ride on Commandment in the Derby. I mean, he got hammered at the break. He had to use him early to get into position, and he got hammered again in the stretch. I think he was in decent enough position. I don't think he necessarily blew the ride. It wasn't my. I think it was conditional because of the amount of obstacles he had to encounter. For jockey selection for the field, Tyler, I don't get as enamored about jockeys as other people do. There are occasions where I'll look and say, yeah, that's a really good fit. Jose Ortiz, Irad Ortiz, you're not going to go, Irad's not as good on closers. I will say that. Saez is probably better amongst horses who are going to be stalking because he's a really good finisher. He's just such a great finisher. Johnny V, I would say I don't mind Johnny V on any horse, but I love him when he's on a front runner. Let's see. Okay. All right, let's see. I'm just talking with Scott here. Yeah, Scott's going to come on the chat. So I'm sorry about that. That's who I was talking with. Let's see. Sometimes a horse can be 6-5, and he is great value. That's true. That's entirely true. Saez on a front runner only. I like him, and I like Saez generally as a rider. I don't think he's quite as good as a closer. Okay. Alex, when calculating the numbers like we did last week, is the final number calculated with fractions at the third call or the final fractions? Well, the final fraction is the third call, Sean. There's 3 pace calls in every race. In routes, half mile, 6 furlongs, and the final time. Now, there is a stretch call, but for our purposes, we don't. You can use that for that final fraction. Remember at the 1 1/8 race, 9 furlongs, because the stretch is at a mile. That's the call, and then 1 1/8. But when you do the final fractions, let's say the race is a 1 1/8, you've got 4 furlongs, 6 furlongs, and then the final time. So the distance between the 6 furlong call and the 1 1/8 is 3 furlongs, 9 in total. So whatever the final, now if it's a 1 1/4, it's a half a mile between 6 furlongs and a 1 1/4. 1 3/16, it's 2,310 feet. And that's what you base the final fraction on. But you can, again, the stretch call is, you can use that too for your own purposes, but that's generally the way it is, yes. Let me just see. Yeah, Scott can't come on right now, but he's gonna get on the chat, so we'll be able to. He will be there. If you did have questions for him, I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes, and then I'm gonna put up the pace numbers, and we can take a look at them and review them. So let's see. I did find out that Cole Battle has been in a couple. Yes, he had. He started his career on turf. He did, but it was a very strange. So I don't know why they put him on turf. I have no idea. He just ran his best dirt race prior. Integration in the Manhattan. Okay. They finally gave Oselli a break. Puma was wounded, probably permanently. Oh, didn't know that. Okay, Joel. Okay, good. Nice to meet you, Joel. I'd much rather call you that than CSJ. This is my favorite capper show. after you left Trust the Profits? Well, I never did leave. I was never with Trust the Profits. I have guested on that show a time or two. Tim's a very good friend of mine. So Sean and Colin. Colin's now on his own. Um, but Tim's my boy, and we had a great time in Keeneland this year. Hope to do it again in the fall. I very much appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. But yeah, I've always been on my own. It just felt like I was part of the Trusted Profits group, and I still, I used to do Thursday nights. I can't now. But when I have when they do the Derby show in the afternoons, or when I can go on, I miss that. Boy, I used to love that. And Turfway on Thursday nights was always a lot of fun. But thank you. Am I a professional horse player? No. It's funny. Some people ask me that, and I said sometimes I am. Sometimes I build submarines, and sometimes I more build submarines than I am a horse player. That's what I do, by the way. I build submarines. I work for a defense contractor. I am not a professional horse player. Professional horse player to me, I kind of subscribe to John Stetton's rule of thumb about that, or his description. John was and is, I guess you could still say, a pro. If he didn't win, he didn't eat. That was his occupation. That was his job. It wasn't a side hustle. Horse racing to me is a side job. I do it because I love it, and I would love at some point in my life to do it full time. I did dally with it for a little bit, and I did it. It was too early in my career to do that, but I think now I could. But the guys who play for a living, like if they don't win, they don't eat. Those are pros, in my opinion. When that's all they do, most of us, it's a side hustle. It's a side thing we love to do. So there you are. Let's see, Michael from Stuttgart. Is Golden Tempo the worst value in the Belmont based on the trainer's story highly inflating his odds, as well as Golden Tempo having no pace to close into? You brought up something excellent, Michael. And we had a little whiff of that in the Preakness with Brittany Russell, because you obviously had the specter of, if Taj Mahal won the Preakness, you could have an all-female Triple Crown. Every year, there are stories that heighten horses' value in the public's eyes, I should say. Happens all the time. My boy Jack was a horse who ran in the Derby a few years ago. He had no bloody chance whatsoever. But his name was My Boy Jack. So people bet him. Every year there's horses who are people bet on the name. Commandment, I'm sure, got a little extra because of, not that he didn't deserve to be bet, but there's always horses who have a story, or, they hype them up on the seemingly endless Kentucky Derby pregame show. And these horses get bet. I think that's a very valid point. I think he probably will be. And he's the Derby winner, though. So, of course, he's going to get bet. Does he have an ideal scenario? Not like he did in the Derby. I don't think so. And he'll be – I will be using Golden Tempo. Absolutely. Not as a win bet, I don't think. Let's see. What's your name, WBAF? So I don't have to keep calling you that. And thanks for tapping down the language. I appreciate it. Industry is negligent and greedy, period. One of many symptoms of declining American empire. Okay. Well, first of all, we're not going to expand on that. My take on the industry is quite simple. It has not evolved with the times, per se. If you recall, that it was the sport of kings That's how it started. It was nobles running their horses against each other in England. And the United States was pretty much the same thing. You had a lot of old money, didn't need the money. They were running for fun, running against each other, the Vanderbilts, the Whitneys. And it was they could take the time to take the time with horses and let them mature into their natural being. Oh, don't forget, a horse doesn't become a horse until he's 5 years old. They're colts right now. So they also had a very stratified system where you ran at 2, 3, Derby Trail, Triple Crown, Travers, 3-year-old years over. Now you start the handicap division. That's where you prove what kind of stallion you are, because now you have to carry more weight than the other horses in the race. That's why they called it the handicap division, because you're assigning different weights, and it was very stratified. So if a horse was really good, like Seattle Slew or Affirm, those are 2 Triple Crown winners who raced at 4. If you could carry weight, you were a good candidate to be a stallion. Now, as soon as a horse is at the height of his value, boom, he's done. He's retired. He's out to stud. Why? New money, and they're treating it as a business, not as a recreational activity. I want to win now. That's why these trainers scratch these horses. They're afraid to run them. So because they haven't, the jockey club seems to still run it the way the old guard, the old money way. They'd never had, they had a chance to have horse racing and TV way back when. And they did for a little while in the 50s. Did they continue it? No. But you know why? They said, oh, nobody will go to the track. That's what the baseball owner said about radio. Okay? That's the backward ass thinking. And then they're behind the times. They're catching up to a certain degree with technology, but they don't disseminate information. You got to pay for that, right? Past performances, all that. We don't have disclosure from the trainers to know what kind of shape these horses are in. We have to guess. And all they're thinking about is, I got mine, and that's all I care about. The stud fees, the breeding, you're right. And until they all come together and figure it out, we're in trouble. Okay, let's see. Mark. Okay, Mark, thank you. Alex, anytime I see Jose Ortiz on a new horse, I am putting him at least in my exotics. He did well at Churchill on Saturday. I'm going to be really honest with you guys about something that I did today, and I want to thank Ernie Marshall for it. Many things I thank. Number one, he's my friend, which I'm grateful for. But also, and it seems kind of silly, but when you've been handicapping a long time, sometimes you get a little proud. And one of the things that I won't do is, people bet jockeys. I don't do that. However, today I was like, you looked at that Churchill card on Saturday. Who won the stakes races? Jose, Irad, and Pratt. That was it. It's like they got a monopoly on the stakes races. I started, I think Flavian Pratt was on a couple. And I was like, I don't like him, but it's Flavian Pratt. The Ortiz brothers box. That's what Ernie gave me. So I've had to be a little more humble about that. And I do think a jockey makes a difference. I don't want to say they don't, but I prefer to concentrate more on the horse. That's where I think, it's the horse. The jockey can only do so much. A good jockey can win a race. A bad jockey can lose a race. But in between, there's so many different things that can happen. It's all about what kind of horse you've got under you, to me. So, but yeah, I'm thinking more in terms of the Ortiz brothers boxes because they're just really good. Your name is A Liquid too. Come on, come on. Y. That's your name. So we have two guys named A Liquid. Felipe, thanks for the info. First timer, wonderful. Well, thank you, Felipe. I could have sworn I'd seen you before, but regardless, I'm glad you're here. And yeah, always a lot of new people tonight. I'm very happy to see. Pratt's worth a few lengths. Yeah, he is. Didn't yes. Um, will Flavian Pratt make a difference? Or Tower says I like Pratt. What's not to like? But it's with emerging market. Would he make a very? Could he make the difference? Yes, that's the kind of horse I'm talking about. That is where a really good jockey can make a difference on a horse who's clearly got talent, but maybe needs a little extra to get over the top. Yes. John Moeller agrees with me. Very good on the front. Got great hands. And he's strong. He's like Lafitte Pinkai. He gets a lot out of a horse. I just came in. Another Daniel. I got, 4 Daniels tonight? Hi, Daniel. Good to see you. Welcome aboard. I haven't seen you before. I just came in, so apologize if this has already been asked. What do you think Renegade goes off at? Less than 9 to 5? New York owner? Yeah. I don't know, though. The presence of Golden Tempo. Don't forget, you're going to have 100,000 people there, most of whom don't know a furlong from a fetlock, right? They don't know anything. They're there for the party, right? Somebody told them Saratoga is a really cool place. Let's go watch the Belmont Stakes. What else are we going to do the first Saturday in June? And I know because I battle them trying to bet, and I get really angry when I got to wait for them. So you're going to have a lot of people betting, oh, Kentucky Derby winner, Golden Tempo. What? Let's bet him back. They don't know. Will Renegade be hammered? He's going to get his share of action. Will it be less than 9 to 5? I don't know. 8 to 5, 7 to 5, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I remember when Mo Donegal won the Belmont in 22. And he had the horrible trip in the Derby. He was in the one hole. Everybody and his brother bet him back, and I was at the Belmont that day. And he was a short price, and he won the race. But it was a smaller field, and I'm not sure it was as good. Rich Strike didn't run. Epicenter didn't run. And I don't think Zandon did either, if I remember right. I'm not sure. So, I don't know. I mean, I think he'd probably be less than 9 to 5 is my long-winded answer. Let's see. Now, I want to make sure I pronounce this right. Is it Charlene? I hope so. I always want to know which horse is the bomb. Oh, and welcome, by the way. I always want to know which horse is the bomb or long shot for Super High Five because we all know the top 5 favorites. Is the jockey or trainer the way to detect that horse or just the odds? I would say there's no clear-cut way to determine a long shot. But I will tell you this. You're never going to get a long shot. Hi, Scott. Good to have you. Scott's here, by the way. That's too close to call. Finding a long shot, well, first thing you know, it would never be the trainer for the most part. And the reason being is in the Belmont, Is Todd Pletcher ever going to have a long shot? Chad Brown, Brad Cox, Belmont, highly unlikely. They will always be overbet because of who they are. Is the jockey a reason to determine a long shot? It can be. And the reason is if you see a high profile jockey on a horse he's never ridden before, who's going off at big odds for a trainer he doesn't normally ride for, there's a reason for that. He's got something. That's what the trainer's telling you. So you look and you go, Johnny Velasquez is riding this horse and he's 35-1. And who's this trainer? I've never heard of this guy. That's got to tell you something. Sometimes. Now, you got to look at the numbers and see other things that potentially could make him a bona fide long shot. How's the rest of the field? Is the favorite vulnerable? Are the better horses in the race all vulnerable? Is there a reason to bet against, to take a long shot? A lot of factors in it. But you can't just look at one or the other. Obviously, now, you know, and I'm my own worst enemy because the Derby, I should have done this. I told all these guys my theory about the Derby in particular. When you see 2 or 3 horses with roughly the same odds, you've got to find a long shot, meaning 3 favorites who are all roughly the same, like 4-1, 9-2, 5-1, like right in there where the public can't clearly make up its mind. Got to find a long shot. That's how I got Rich Strike. That's exactly why I got it. Now, if you had applied that principle to this year's Derby, you would have looked and you said Commandment, Chief Wallaby, Further Ado, they're all right around the same, and Renegade. You know, nobody can make up their mind. Who's the favorite? There's probably a good reason for that. Let's find a long shot. I had a very brief flicker of thinking about Golden Temple, and the only reason I didn't was because A, I thought Chief Wallaby was the best horse in the race, and B, I thought it was too obvious. Because it never, when it's a long shot, it's a Rich Strike or a Mind That Bird or Giacomo, or I mean, it's just a horse that you don't really expect to come out of nowhere. Now, I may have overthought it, and but Golden Temple would have made a lot of sense. But I just thought it's too logical, if that makes any sense. Long shots usually are really, in the Derby, are really big numbers. But it takes a lot. There's a lot of different factors in it, Charlene. It's not just one. Let's see. Okay, Scott is here. Now, I'm going to take a couple more questions, then we're going to get to the pace numbers now that I got the man himself here. Pratt has rode all 3 of Chad's horses, but stays with emerging market. Yeah, John, you can get into that. Jockey roulette. That's a tough call. I mean, Growth Equity looked pretty good. I haven't thrown him out yet. And Atino, I haven't thrown out either. Atino's the one. I think if you're looking for an odds horse who's going to stick around for your super, he's the one. When I do my Belmont post, you'll see why. Andrew, we have our statistician here, the guy who comes up with all the great data, Andrew Carpenter. Good to see you, Andrew. Last second place Derby runner to win the Belmont was 23 years ago by Empire Maker. Only 4 Derby winners won the Belmont in the last 31 races, but you do want to exit the Derby. Empire Maker could have won the Kentucky Derby. He was a hell of a horse. He's not thought of a lot, but he was a hell of a horse in his day. And by the way, those of you who went back and looked up Exothermic, that 58-1 long shot I told you I got, he was by Empire Maker, not Hard Spun. Senior moment. It all gets jumbled together after a while. Anyway, the last second place Derby runner to win the belt, 23. Yeah, Empire Maker. Empire Maker was the best 3-year-old in that crop. I think Renegade's the best in this crop. Every year's different. Always remember that. Okay, let's see what Joel has. My name is Mark. Okay. And Chad Brown Tuppy, no question, great. Do you think these trainers are better than the guys from the 80s to 2010 and 56 and since the late 70s, not trying to troll, just love race? It's a different animal. I don't think you could, obviously Todd Pletcher is playing the D. Wayne Lucas playbook and it works for him. I don't think he's the riverboat gambler that D. Wayne Lucas is. He's very conservative. He's a fine trainer. I'd be happy to have him train my horses. Chad Brown, I think is very good. I think he's a little better on turf, but he's still a good dirt trainer. Belmont, to me, is the best. He'd be great in any generation, period. The guy's awesome. He's just awesome. I mean, his record speaks for itself. Youngest guy to ever get in the Hall of Fame. There's great Laz Barrera, Charlie Winningham. There's great Leroy Jolly. There's great trainers in every era. I think maybe there's some more challenges for these guys and maybe a little more demanding from the owners than there used to be, perhaps. And the fact that they're scratching these horses too much is just criminal to me. And that's something has to happen with that because they basically should be telling these guys, like, if your horse is healthy, you're not scratching him. Okay, he's running. If you enter him, he's running. That's almost the way they need to be. If Heiss is going to be that strict, maybe the stewards ought to be too. Or, I don't know. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do. Because Scott is here, and he was to be my special guest, but life gets in the way sometimes, and he had other commitments. But he has been kind enough to come here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up his pace numbers. I'm going to go over them, but be watching the comments when you see too close to call, because Scott will make some observations that he has found so far. So, he's the man when it comes to pace. I have looked at them, and I think I can guide you guys, but we've got the expert here. So if you get my drift, this is the way we're going to sort of do it, kind of a funky way. But here are the pace numbers. And let's see if I can. Let's see. I want to see if I can get it bigger. There we go. Okay, you don't need to see me. So when you look at these numbers, I'm going to take this. Get rid of that comment. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just trying to. Okay. So, and rest assured, before you go crazy and say I can't read any of this, the numbers are too small or whatnot. I've got one that I did copied from this, but there's no highlighting or color coding. And so this is why we're going to use this a little bit. I can put a blank one up if you want, but I think this would be better to show. So basically what we're looking at here is the first three columns here. The ones to the left are for pace. What was the pace of the race? And you can see what Scott's done here. You see the ones in beige? That's the Kentucky Derby. Okay? The ones that are in, you see that all the way in the far right? The far right column is the race itself. And what I'm going to do is be patient with me, guys. I'm sorry. I want to make sure I can do this with a frame of reference that I'm looking at so I can tell. Now, the basically what Scott's done is included 2 prep races. So you have the last race before the Derby, and then the Derby itself for the contenders who ran in it, and then for the others, uh, you've got two races. So, like for instance, for trouble here. All right, there we go. So, for instance, like growth equity, he's got the Peter Pan, and yeah, we've only got the Peter Pan. And for like Latino, we've got the Withers and the Bluegrass Stakes. And like Vitruvian Man, those are my. I did Vitruvian Man on my own, so if you don't see it there because he hadn't been entered yet. But so, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get this all together. Ronnie, Pioneer of the Nile, was the sire of American Pharaoh. Okay. So when we look at these numbers, obviously they're color coded, and green means good, yellow means average, and red is bad. So when you look at them, and again, I'm going to have this for you guys in my Belmont presentation. Okay, so don't go crazy. You're going to have this, and so you can look at it in. I wish I could get it bigger for you, but let me see. Okay, I can't see your comments, but I can see the numbers. I'm just gonna. I put it full screen so I can read it better. So we'll go by them one by one, and you see that they're color coded just by. This is alphabetical. Obviously, we don't have the post positions, but you think about it in terms of the silks, the saddle blanket colors: red, white, blue, yellow. So the first one we're going to look at is Chief Wallaby, and you'll see the Florida Derby. You see those first two fractions are in yellow. The first and second pace call. We're going from left to right. And so that means they're they're average. And you see the green 53.64 for Chief Wallaby. That was a really good third fraction. Remembering, of course, it was a little inflated because the pace was slow. Now you look to the Derby, 55.98, 54.08, 51.65. Now you guys remember, anything over 53 is good. But the numbers they run in the Derby will always be will be lower than they are before the Derby because obviously the distance is longer. And he ran a 51.65, which is it isn't bad in this field. There's only a couple of horses who ran over 53, or Golden Tempo, I believe, is the only one who was over 53, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps. But anyway, so Chief Wallaby, if you consider in comparison to the rest of the horses, he's okay. You could say the same. Now, Chip Honcho's out of the race, so we won't worry about him. Look at Commandment. His numbers were good going into the Derby, and he ran essentially the same race Chief Wallaby did. The numbers are pretty much the same. Chief Wallabies are a hair better for the final fraction. And you see Emerging Market, he ran faster early on than Chief Wallaby or Commandment. You see, his early fraction was 56.43. And then 54.08, 50.58. Now we know he threw his shoe. So there's a little bit of an excuse there. And we also know he was closer to the pace than the others were, which would perhaps account for a lower third fraction. However, the pace isn't going to be as hot in the Belmont. And so, in my opinion, now Scott may disagree with me, I would put Emerging Market on a par with Chief Wallaby or Commandment just from a pace perspective. Uh, but the one thing that from those numbers, but the one thing you do have to look at is the percentage energy. Now that's all the way to the right, the second to last column. And you'll see that Chief Chief Wallabies was a little high, 51.72. Commandment was 51.82, but he had to work early. We know that. Maybe not so much in this race with a smaller field, but look at Emerging Market, 52.38. That's high. But we know that because the pace was quick and he was closer to it than they were. And he was a little wide. So could he rebound from numbers like that? Possibly. Now you look at Golden Tempo, and this is the thing that Scott was very excited about. And I know this, I think he'll validate, is that look at that middle fraction in the Louisiana Derby, 55.30, and then the final 53.70. The early fraction is in red because we know he's a deep closer. It's always going to be bad because he's going to be way at the back. But you fast forward to the Kentucky Derby and you see he ran that middle. Look at he ran essentially the same race he ran in the Louisiana Derby in the Kentucky Derby. And that's why he won. 53.42 final fraction, 55.14, that big middle move. And look at his percentage energy, 50.45. Which is about what a closer should be. So he ran essentially the same race he ran in the Louisiana Derby. So this is what I mean about I'm not so sure he's necessarily improving. Scott may have a different idea on it. Now, Scott, I don't know if you heard, but from what they're telling me, that the guys in the group here, that Oselli's not going to run. He's running in the Belmont. And frankly, there's two things I want to point out about Oselli, and this I would toss him. His three races, look at the last fraction, 52.51 in the Virginia Derby, 52.56 in the Kentucky Derby, 52.04 in the Preakness. But here's the worst part. Look at the percentage energy. 50.88, 51.08, 51.38. He's working harder every race to stay in. I think if Belmont would have been a problem. Latino, he's in the orange there. And again, I'll just say, don't worry about it. You're going to have this. So if it's hard to read now, I apologize. But I just want to give you some little things to think about. Atino's withers, you see two red for the second, third fraction, but look at his bluegrass. 53.66, 52.46. Now, that's not bad at a mile and an eighth. So that's a horse, I would say, who is improving. You couple that, here's the big thing. The withers, 51.69 in red. That's the percentage energy all the way to right next to the withers there. But the Bluegrass Stakes, 51.12, improving, better race. So that's a horse with pedigree to get the mile and a quarter who seems to be on the upslope. But 10 days out of the race. Now here's Power Shift. He's in the light blue there. Okay. The Tampa Bay Derby. Now we know that might have been a little too much too soon for him, and he had some trouble in that race. 56.77. That's green. That's the first fraction. Second fraction, 52.53. And then really falls off a cliff, 50.34. So that's a horse who just was up there early and just faded right out. And then you look at the percentage energy all the way to the right in red there, right next to Tampa Bay Derby, 52.34. High. Not good. But you look at that maiden special weight in the beige right below, 56.36, 53.33, 52.72. Now that's an improved pace line. And the percentage energy was 51.2. Much better. But that's against maidens. Will he do that again? Not likely. I don't think so. Renegade. Now, Renegade, you see what I was talking about. The Derby numbers are usually lighter than they are prior to in a Derby prep before it. 54.87, 54.84, 52.69. That's for the Derby. Those are not as good numbers as they were in the Arkansas Derby, but it was a mile and a quarter, and we all know he had trouble. Now, you see the percentage energy went up to 51.01. In the Arkansas Derby, it was 50.31. Well, we all know why. He got hammered. He had to work a little harder early. But what should be something that you feel good about is that, hey, he had all that trouble and he still damn nearly won the race. That's what I'm looking at. So I'm going to back this out. And let Scott make some calls. Let's read what Scott has to say, because these are his numbers, and this is more me just trying to fill in the gaps for some of you guys that can't see it as well. So let's go up here. You guys have had a lot of talk about the undercard. We will have full coverage of that for sure. I think Vitruvian Man from Timeform US, adjusted numbers. From Scott, what I saw, the numbers I did for the San Antonio Derby won't cut it. Won't cut it for the Belmont. He looks to me like he'll be more forwardly placed. I didn't expect to see that. But I also think it being the Belmont and his chances being remote, they're going to take him all the way to the back and make one run. That's my guess. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I'm just backing up with the comments a little bit. Just, okay. WBF, what was your name again? I apologize. I was just looking for it. I'm sorry. Okay. Here's what Scott says. Agree on emerging market. The Belmont is a bit different handicapping puzzle, and the way I approach it is different from the Kentucky Derby. Okay, that's good to know. Edouard, thank you. Thanks for coming. You're another new face. Good to see you. Laura, you think you can spot my long shot, huh? Who do you think it is? I don't really have one yet, to be honest. Debbie saw it too? Who did you see? Are you going to leave us in the dark? I'm going to guess he doesn't, but I don't want to speak for Scott. What do you think about Vitruvian Man? Second from the bottom. Tyler can't see the name. Alex's face is in the way. You mean, I think it could perhaps be growth equity. Let me get this so I can see it. Okay. I'm looking at it from my own computer, see if I can. Yeah, growth equity at the bottom. I'll give those to you. Okay, this is from the Peter Pan. His first fraction is in yellow, 55.66. The second fraction is 53.86, and the final at 1.125 around 2 turns is 53.34. Very good. That's a good fraction. The percentage energy, 50.79. Excellent. So from the Peter Pan, that's a very good pace line, in my opinion. Now, Scott may disagree with me, but he's one that you got to pay a lot of attention to, I think. Oh, you got to okay. Get premium. How does Power Shift's pedigree look? You know, I'll just take a look at it, and I'll tell you. I'm looking it up here so I don't have to take the pace numbers off the screen. Power Shift is by Constitution out of Tappet, and Free Flying Soul by Quiet American. That's the dam. And his dosage profile he's got is 211-25-00. So he has a ton of classic influences. And that's mainly from Tappet and Quiet American, who are both Chefs de Race Intermediate Classic. So, I mean, from that perspective, and you just look down at the on the past performances, and his average winning distance is 7.4 for both Constitution and Free Flying Soul for Quiet American. So 10 starters, 8 winners, 1 stakes winner. Pretty good. I think he'll be all right at 1.25 miles. He should be. It's really more the race shape that's going to be the problem, I think, for Quiet American. Okay. I think now this is let me just put up what Scott says. I think Renegade is still the most likely winner. Me too. I will be backing emerging market as well as growth equity. However, that is not my biggest long shot. I will be backing Alex, sending you a message. All right. Okay. Okay. Bob is my uncle. The old guard will never change, stuck in their ways, only care about themselves. They are incapable. Well, I'm not going to necessarily agree with you there. This is the old guard cares a little bit more about the whole, but it's more about the people in horse racing than it is anything else. But I don't want to go there. But so you heard from you heard from Scott that okay. Now here's what Scott sent me, a rather voluminous message, and I'm going to read it. And I think this is the best that I can do, and I'll try to, if you just can pay attention to what I'm saying here. Okay, Vitruvian Man, because I've heard a lot of people talking about him here. And let me fuel up before this is a rather long passage from Scott. Okay. Vitruvian Man. Pedigree. He combines 2 of the most influential modern classic dirt families, the Curlin Smart Strike branch of Mr. Prospector through his sire, Vina Rosso, and the Bernardini AP Indy branch of Seattle Slew through his dam. He also has the Mr. Prospector line stacked on top with Machiavellian and Street Cry. So on paper, it seems like a pedigree built for distance and stamina. I agree, along with continued development as he matures. I am certainly no pedigree expert, but there seems to be a lot to like that. There is. pedigree wise, I think Vitruvian Man is going to be fine at a mile and a quarter. I just don't think he's fast enough. Trip handicapping. Doug O'Neill started him out on the grass in a maiden optional claimer at a mile, and then again at 8 furlongs on the turf without any real success. He then went 2 turns on the dirt at Keeneland where he broke his maiden. He then moved up to an 8 mile and a 16th allowance race at Churchill on a sloppy sealed track where he finished second with his best Brisnet speed figure to date, 84. Still not super fast, exactly. Then in December of last year, he takes him to Turfway and tries him in an optional claimer on the synthetic going a mile where he finished third. Finally, following a 3-month layoff, he put up a bullet work, first out of 60 at 5 furlongs before he places him in the G1 company in the San Diego Derby. And if you guys remember my video from that, I did like Vitruvian Man to finish in the money, and he did. Going his furthest distance and against the classiest horses he's faced. What I noticed in that race, which was backed up by the FPS fractions, feet per second fractions, was that he ran much quicker early than he had in any of his previous races. If you go back and watch that replay, you'll see jockey Antonio Fresu actually takes hold of him entering the second turn. I don't want to assume, but perhaps he was giving too much too soon and Fresu wanted to save something for the stretch. But the horse backed up a couple lengths to the field before riding him hard again into the stretch to pick up a distant third and gaining grade 1 black type in the process. Since then, he has worked out another 4 times over a 2-month stretch, 2 times at 5 furlongs, once at 6 furlongs. So it seems like O'Neill is attempting to build more stamina into this horse, and the layoff does not worry me as much here. Pace. Now, these are the feet per second fractions for Vitruvian Man. First call, 55.98. Second call, 53.68. Third call, 52.04 at Santa Anita. Not bad for a 2-turn race. Those fractions won't win the Belmont, but with a forward move, he's actually not too far from hitting the board. I don't expect much pace in there. And if it's a bit soft up front, that allows a horse like Vitruvian Man to settle in a comfortable cruising pace, which might allow him to distribute his energy more evenly through the race. As I already alluded to, there are too many other good horses in here that I think would have to be a perfect storm for this horse to win. But this is the type of horse I like to include on lower rungs of the Try and Super. That would be a huge number. I totally agree with that. That's exactly you want. Again, now this is a mile and a quarter, but a traditional mile and a half Belmont, that's what you're looking for, those horses who just keep running. And I think Vitruvian Man is one of those, for sure. But a horse whose odds imply that almost no chance of meaningful improvement. If he's 40 to 1 or higher, you don't need him to become the best horse in the race. Exactly. You need to become the 4th best horse in the race. He may finish way back, but he is the type, if he hits the board, I will not be without him. Exactly. Remember I told you guys, we remember the Derby, every year we talk about this. There you go, Laura. Okay. So this is the thing that's overlooked. Everybody thinks about who's going to win the race. But you want to think about the horses who are going to factor in the race, or who are going to finish it. Vitruvian Man could very well be. I'm going to definitely use him in my Try and my Super, without a doubt. Why? He's got the pedigree to go the distance, and he's fresh. He didn't run a mile and a quarter a month ago, right? Those are the kind of horses that you love to put in these races. So there's that. From what we've looked at here, the one thing that should be apparent is you see in a lot of horses, the ones who ran in the Derby, the Chief Wallaby, Commandment, emerging market, the pace numbers are very similar. Emerging markets are a little lower, but the reason they are is because he was up closer and he did throw his shoe. So that, and his percentage energy needs to be lower, but with a more moderate pace, I think that's very reasonable. So any one of those three, I'm not high on commandment, but I've told you guys why. But they're logical. Now, if growth equity runs back to what he did in the Peter Pan, he can win this race. But you also have to remember, the class is going to be deeper and tougher. But is he a horse that you want to consider? Absolutely. He didn't run a mile and a quarter yet. These others have. They may be a little tired. I still like Renegade. I mean, Renegade, hasn't done anything wrong, and he doesn't need the pace, whereas I think Golden Tempo does. That to me is the long and the short of it. And again, I got to look at it more deeper, but that's what I'm seeing so far. Fun fact: rapper Lil Wayne owns a stake in Vitruvian Man. Okay, let's see what's got. Well, now I'm off. Okay. You want to come on, Scott? Are you still not able to? Let me do this. I'm just gonna send you the link, whatever it's got. Hopefully you can come on. If you can't, I understand. Okay, let's see. Where are we going here? I only hear good things about O'Neill. Not a surprise. He's bringing in rappers and celebs. Doug O'Neill's a trip. He's a partier. He's definitely like a Mike Pegram kind of guy. I'm actually surprised that he doesn't have Mike Pegram's horses. Yeah, he's a trip, and he was a little ahead of the game than Bob Baffert. He started moving east sooner. I'm just fair the game's headed back to the Sport of Kings. Yeah. Well, I'll just throw this up here, and it's kind of society is right now, isn't it? It's sort of back to the Edwardian, the Victorian age. You got really, really top heavy, but we need to get more of those people in because they got the money and to inject into the sport. So if you answered earlier, Alex, but how much stock do you put into post draws for this race? Not much. It's not even close to being a factor like it is with the Derby. I'm not worried about it at all. I think everybody's going to get to where they need to. They got plenty of time. Saratoga is very similar to Churchill Downs, so there's a long run up to the first turn. Let's see. Scott says, I think he had a little harder trip Scott. I mean, he got hammered pretty good at the start of the race. But I think A-Rod gave him a nice ride and got him to where he needed to. And so I don't think it was as bad as Commandments. I think there was a little trouble, though, I would say. Let's see. Yeah. Renegade, emerging market, Petruvian man cold. That'd be all right. Yeah, that's it's not bad. I'm just reaching out to Scott. What's the best post? Um, I don't know. I don't. I'm not really concerned about that for this race, to be quite honest. TCB. And thanks for coming. I've seen you before. Good to see you. I've had so many people I've had to ask what their name is. I can't recall, and I apologize. Um, Cherie lengthened that horse's odds before the Derby. Oh, Cherie DeVoe's definitely going to. Golden Tempo's going to get bet down. For every woman who goes to the Belmont who doesn't follow horse racing, I'm sure that's the horse she's going to want. They're going to want.
Not me.
You know, when Jenna Antonucci was in the Belmont, Arcangelo, I think he got a lot of action. That was one of the main reasons. Decided he was a very good horse, but hey, Laura, how's the reading coming? Are you still reading Picking Winners? Yeah, he's in tight. I think the Chad Brown, all three of them, have a really good chance. I do. You can't underestimate the freshness aspect of it. Latino and growth equity. I like what I saw from growth equity. I just, and he did run the kind of fractions that if this was the Kentucky Derby, you'd be excited about growth equity. I just do wonder about the class level of that race. That's all. So when I see that, I kind of, get a little bit of hesitation. Yeah, Scott's got a full day tomorrow. I do too, but so he's not going to stay on much longer. But he did give me the idea, perhaps that he and I will put something together. Just the two of us will record something for you guys and maybe give you a little more in depth about the pace. That's the title. I think maybe we should be able to do that. So again, it's logistics. Life gets in the way sometimes, and but anyway, let's see. It sounds like he could be. I'm not 100% there yet, but I'm pretty close. Stalled, busy with work. Haven't laid a bet in 2 weeks. Okay. Video schedule. Okay. Well, I'm going to have a video about the Belmont itself. I will definitely have that. And wait a minute. W. Baff, is that Bafford? Is that your last name? WBAF? Anyway, we're going to have a video on the Belmont. That'll be probably the first one. We'll do the undercard for sure. Probably you'll get the full card selections. And if we can logistically work it out, Scott and I will do something. That's going to be tough to do, but I'll try to get something where he and I just go over this chart. You can get his thoughts on each individual horse. We'll see if we can get that done for you, for sure. Ernie, great to see you as always. Thanks for coming by. Have yourself a good night. I know you and I will probably talk on race day. So, and you know what? if we can do it, maybe we'll do a Belmont live feed. You guys, would you be interested in that? I can't show the races, but I mean we can. We can watch them together if you want. It's up to you. Okay, I'll give it some thought. Life gets in my way too sometimes. We'll see what my schedule's like, but I guess I'm just at this point. I'd say, Scott, do you have any final thoughts before you have to jump off? Just some things that we haven't covered that maybe you think are of interest. Tyler asks, in terms of finding a winner, do you find the Belmont more difficult at this stage than the Kentucky Derby or the Preakness? No, I think the Belmont's easier because, I mean, because the thing with the Belmont is at 1.5 miles. Yeah, I might be. I might be, and if I do, I can feed from the Belmont to you guys, like give you scouting reports or something like that. I may be. I haven't decided yet, Laura. In terms of finding, do you find the Belmont more difficult to the stage in the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness? I find the Belmont easier because it is the test of the champion. Now, at 1.25 miles, it does bring some horses back into the fold, per se. But when you get to the Belmont, you know who is who. And particularly the horses who ran in the Derby, who skipped the Preakness. If they were a good Derby candidate, they're going to be a good Belmont candidate. But the Belmont, when it's 1.5 miles, there's a separation from horses who might be good at the Derby, but are strong in the Belmont. Like if you took Golden Tempo's pedigree, if he wasn't such a deep closer, he'd be really strong. At 1.5 miles, I would be very interested in Golden Tempo. Not so much in 1.25 miles. There's a separation. It just becomes really clear. Once you get past the Derby, it's really clear. So the Belmont's easier to me. Let's see. I haven't heard anything about Golden Tempo. I don't know. I haven't heard anything. Let me just bring that. I think we took a look at that. And again, I want to say you're going to have the pace numbers. Okay, you're going to have them. So if I took it off the screen now, you'll have them so you can be able to study them on your own. So, and I don't know if Scott jumped off or not, but I do want to thank him. He did, yeoman effort because he had a tough day. He had a really busy weekend, and he still made time for us. So I want to thank him publicly for that. And I think you guys certainly can appreciate Scott's work. So I want to thank him very much for doing that. And we're definitely going to see more of him without a doubt. Let's see. Michael from Stuttgart. I hate having paid to see how good emerging market is in the Derby, and even though I paid, I didn't get to see. All I can do is pay again. Yeah. I feel you, Michael. But you know what? It's horse racing, right? I mean, just these things happen. But I think you should take solace in the fact he still finished 10th, despite the problems, despite being up amongst the pace. I think that's a mark of a pretty good horse. And I think with a more moderate pace, I think he could be very dangerous, for sure. And as far as your question, Tyler, yes, Scott is saying with me, it's easier in some ways. When it's 1.5 miles, when you got it really becomes clear the wheat from the chaff. You can feel it. Ernie, it's always a pleasure. I love doing this, and guys like you all you guys today make my life a lot easier, and a lot because of the support you provide. So I don't want to tell you. You make you think for 1 minute I underestimate it or overlook it. I really, really appreciate it, and it's a pleasure to do it. And now that we've got the community where it is, I'm really liking it, and it makes doing this a labor of love. And so I really appreciate all you guys, and I thank you as well. And just the fact that you acknowledge it, it means a lot. It makes my life a lot easier. And Scott says all the best horses in the Derby are pointing towards and trying to peak on the first Saturday. Very good point. In the Belmont, you have to think more about forms. That's exactly right, Scott. That's a great point. You always have to remember that a lot of these trainers, they point for the Derby. So when you get them after that race, it's sometimes, they're not in peak condition. If they're a really good horse, they can overcome it. But let's see. Charlene is the pronunciation of my name. I listen more than ask. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, we've probably had 150 to 200 people collectively tonight, and most of them haven't uttered a word, and that's fine. That's fine. You do whatever is comfortable for you. I will say this, and I always say it, particularly during the Derby preps, not to be shy. And there's no such thing as a bad question. And, hey, I'm not, there's going to be some every once in a while I can't answer. But, don't be afraid to ask, ever. That's all I can say. But I really appreciate you being here, Charlene, and I hope it won't be the last time. So thank you. And look at that. Debbie, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. The live feed is really, I was a little reticent to do it. I wanted to be more established before I got into this, but I'm really enjoying it, and I like it a lot. It keeps me in touch with you guys, and find out what you're interested in, and the way you approach things. And it's just a matter of making us all better. Believe it or not, you guys provide a lot of really interesting input and things I don't think about. So we're all getting better, and that's the idea. Let's see. Tyler, do you think emerging market has a higher floor but lower ceiling than Wallaby? Interesting. The way Chief I can't get past that first race with Chief Wallaby. I just love the way he ran. I was like, he's so athletic. And they seem to have gotten away from that. It's almost like when they ran those two preps that Bill Mott's like, hold him back, because I don't want to use him up, and I want to take more time with him, kind of let's have a gradual progression. I think emerging market had a problem with kickback. If you recall, his first two starts, the maiden and the Louisiana Derby. Not so much in the Louisiana Derby. Seems to have solved that problem. I think he's a more mature horse than Chief Wallaby. But I see more potential in Chief Wallaby. I hope that answers your question. Let's see. When a horse throws a shoe during a race, how much does it affect the running? Go off stride, slow down? Well, Christy, and thank you for coming. And I hadn't seen you before. Good to see you. Well, maybe. Well, I'll let you know what. Scott's got an answer, so I'll let him. Hard to say. I've seen times when it has not affected a horse at all, but there is no telling for sure. They are animals, not machines. Each one. That's correct. And I will say this: the most famous example of a horse having shoe problems was Spectacular Bid. He should have won the Triple Crown in 1979. And there would have been three in a row. Seattle Slew, Affirmed, spectacular bid. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if he threw a shoe, but he had a nail, some kind of issue with a nail in his hoof. And I believe he still finished second. I think Coastal won the Belmont. But, you know, I'll tell you the thing with shoes that I, the one thing with shoes that really, like if I hear about it before a horse is running, I throw them out. If a horse is wearing a bar shoe, because a bar shoe, if you can imagine, it goes like that, and it's kind of a way to stabilize the hoof. As soon as they're wearing that, I throw them out. And never had a horse wearing a bar shoe do well in a race. Let's see what Laura said. I like the way you teach and the room you give for opinions. I knew you were the real deal when you gave us the Puma. Okay. Well, thank you, Laura. And hey, listen, I'd like this to be, I like this to be a more communal atmosphere. We've all got opinions, and none of them are wrong. This is a game of opinions. You guys have heard me say it a million times. We're all more wrong than we're right. And I don't necessarily have to agree with you, but it doesn't always mean I'm right. And so I like to give everybody the opportunity to, to voice their opinion. And you know what? As I've said, the main thing about handicapping and horse racing is there's races for everybody. There's races where your handicapping is going to work. There's races where it's not going to work. Here's the difference. And this is what I used to say when I was in sales for years to the younger guys that I trained. The only difference between me and you right now, and that I can make more deals than you can, and there's only one reason: I've been doing it longer. That's all. So I'm aware of things that you're not aware of yet. That's all it means. So that's why, hey, I love to hear that. I love to hear this stuff because it keeps me sharp, and you provide things that are, you guys provide insight that perhaps I wouldn't have before. So this is great I think this is great for everybody. Likely to be sloppy. Well, if it is, to be quite honest, I don't think that would change my opinion. I like Renegade either way. He's the best horse. I have to run. Thank you very much, Scott. It's a pleasure. And listen, your contribution has been invaluable. It really has. And I can't wait for the summer when we get to tackle Saratoga and some of the bigger races. And you guys are definitely going to be hearing more from Scott. And hopefully we can get the stars to line up so it works for the two of us. But I just think this pace info is just so vital. And I think the Travers will definitely be a race we'll be looking at it for sure. But thanks again, Scott. You have yourself a good night. Let's see. Thanks for your insights, Alex. I like your approach, and you have a similar approach to handicapping as I do as well. Oh, good to know. I'm enjoying these Sunday night get. Yeah, I think it's a great thing. It's the end of the week. I mean, we're all relaxed. All the pressure's off. We've won. We've lost. I played a tournament today at Santa Anita, and finished 8th. But won some money at Churchill. I had a good day at Churchill. Better than I had on Saturday. And the ride on Minaret Station. I love that horse. Christian Torres, killed me. But anyway, well, I think we've reached the end of the road here. We've been going at it for nearly 3 hours. I hope so. I got an early day tomorrow. So do we have any other questions? Oh, Well, Joe, thank you very much. Now, I'm going to ask you before I end it, Joe, is that a Mike Connors reference from the TV show in the 70s? Give us a bold take observation. Mannix, I want an answer from you on that. I'm not going anywhere until I get it. Last one, give us a bold take observation for the Belmont. You know, oh, it is. Okay, Joe. Well, I'm one of the few people who would remember that show. The 70s. To sum up the Belmont right now, I would say when you consider the race shape is going to be almost non-existent in terms of we don't really have a firm pace scenario. You've got a lot of the prime players ran in the Derby coming back. Yeah, yeah, it was. I just think this is a case of who the best horse is going to win the race. I think the Derby, there were conditions that made it favorable for Golden Tempo that will not be there. I think Golden Tempo's a good horse. I'm not sure how much more there is in the tank. And the main reason is that he doesn't seem to be improving his running style. And I've talked about that quite a bit. So he would have to have a favorable pace scenario for him that he's not going to have. Renegade doesn't need it. And Renegade's the best horse. He's the best horse. When you pare down the field size, that becomes even more apparent. Now, what if this was a 5-horse race? Would you like Renegade? I would. I'd like him a lot. The smaller the field size, the better horse can dominate, right? And again, I think it's overblown that I do not think Renegade needs to have pace. He's proven it. So I think he's the best horse. Now, all things being equal, emerging market and Chief Wallaby, as well as Growth Equity. Growth Equity has an edge, I think, because he's fresh. Fresher, or well, he hasn't run a mile and a quarter, let's say. I still have, I have some questions about Commandment at the distance, and now he's running at it again. That's a big X factor to me. That's a problem. I think Chief Wallaby's green. That's a bit of an issue. Emerging Market, I think, is a pretty mature horse with a little better luck. He's got a real shot here. Growth Equity looks pretty good, but he's got to step it up in class. We'll see. He looks pretty good. Atino, I think, will keep running. Vitruvian Man, keep running. Those are two at a price that I'll be using. Now, this is all off the top of my head right now. You wait till I do the Belmont deep dive, and I'll have real specific stuff for you. But that's what I'm looking at right now. And we've had some defections apparently. So, but anyway, that's what I look at right now. I just think the best horse is Renegade, and I don't see any reason why he would lose this race. There it is. Will you be doing any horizontal bets? Joe asks. Of course. No, you'll have the pick 5. You will have my full card selections. And in that, whenever I do the full card, you'll have some doubles, some pick 3s, some you'll have my best bet, my long shot. You'll have that card cover to cover, comprehensive. So be on the lookout for that. That'll probably be the last thing I do. We'll do the Belmont individual post first. Then we'll do the pick 5, which I believe is all grade 1s. and then we'll do the undercard and the full card selections. Let's see. Never a better play than going against the chalk in a 4-horse aqueduct race. That is true. Generally, Gary Contessa had a horse a few years ago that Tis Wonderful was coming off a long layoff, and there was a 5-horse race, and I took the longer shot because he was the longer shot and he'd been running. Yeah, you can make a lot of money in those. There was one at Santa Anita yesterday. I can't remember who won it, but he was the highest odds in the race. You can call me Clemens. You a Red Sox fan? I still think of him as a Red Sox player, but okay. We're at the 3-hour mark. I think we're about ready to call it a night. I'll give it one last shot. Any last questions? Okay, well, I'm going to call it then. Listen, guys, this was fun. And again, I apologize. I know you were expecting to see Scott. We'll get him next time. If I can get something out to you in terms of the pace with Scott and myself going over his numbers, we will definitely do it. But rest assured, you will have them in my Belmont presentation. So don't worry about that. Okay. Yes, you too, Laura. Thanks. Thank you. And you have a good night. All of you, that's it from here. I'll talk to you soon. And until then, be well.